Okay. Hello, folks. Apologies. I was fighting for my life to get this stuff to work right. We was about to not have a live 2 minutes ago, but I'm here. So thank you guys for your patience. Let me get in a few quick hellos. So we actually got a lot to talk about here, and I'm gonna give y'all a heads up. I'm gonna spend a good minute on it because I'm about tired of that MFer. So, yeah, my bad for being late. Listen, it was either that or the stuff wasn't gonna be working. So I had to get this stuff right in order for my stuff to make sense. Anyway, let me get a few quick hellos in. Um, what up, Ashley Howard 9739? Love you, Calvin. I saw you at homecoming not too long ago and you smiled and chatted with me. Thank you for all you do. It was a pleasure to meet you. Shout out to HU. You know, I randomly do this thing where anytime I meet somebody from YouTube or like somebody that knows me off the street, I always write their name down. So I literally have, I think I was explaining this the other day. The very first person that ever recognized me from YouTube was this girl, Natalie, way back in like 2012. But no, I literally have a whole list of all these people that end up, I guess, recognizing me on the street or something. So I'll always write down their name and where I met them. Just as a way to, it's your own little personal gratitude. Like, okay, your work pays off and people appreciate what you do. So that's always really cool to meet some of you guys in person. And it's starting to like happen every week, which is pretty cool. What up, Trey Titan 176? What up, Matt Excellence 8410? Bamagle 6, I think I'm saying these right. K Inspired, what's up? What's up? Julian Steve. I gotta check out that video you just posted, Julian. That looks like a great topic that you just posted. Wavy though said, dang, doesn't Calvin owe us 20 now? In this economy? Maybe we will do a giveaway because I've been late for like the last 2 or 3 lives. So yeah, that's true. We'll see. We'll see. What up? Shout out to Chicago, Littlest Kim, Montrez Jones, Candy 9821. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start because we got so much to cover, y'all. I'm so sorry, but shout out to everybody who's here for a few announcements. Book club starts tomorrow. Tomorrow, for many of you, will be today. So tomorrow, Monday, July 20th, we are reading Sky Full of Elephants, and we are covering the first 10 chapters. Anybody is welcome to join and participate. Like I've said before, there's some people who haven't read the book, but they like to still be a part of the book club, and it's on Zoom. So in that same community tab where I posted the announcement, you can just utilize that link and that will take you to the Zoom for where we're doing the book club. Or you can go to my website, calvinmichaels.com, go to the tab that says book club, and when you scroll down below the timeline countdown or the timer, there's a link that will get you to the book club. Like I said, if you haven't had a chance to read everything, that's totally fine. A lot of times the subject matter in the book, we always expand beyond that, and a lot of times we bring back to real life and we start having discussions about things that are sometimes related to the book, but sometimes just about where we are in life. So it's always open to anybody, so feel free to participate. We're going to do 4 sessions for this book, so if you missed the first one, there will be 3 more because the book has about 40 something chapters in total. And by the way, it's not a lot of reading, by the way. Those 10 chapters, at least 4 or 5 of them are only a handful of pages, so it's not a heavy assignment. Podcast is out, Comedically Hardheaded. I actually went ahead and recorded 2 episodes. So one episode just came out, it was at Tuesday night, and the other one drops in about another 2 weeks. I'm just giving that first one a little bit of leg room to do its thing and then go from there. And then, yeah, the next episode will come out afterwards. Just because I was like, I don't want y'all to keep waiting 50 years for podcast episodes. So let me start just recording 2 at a time, right? Okay, so what have I been up to? Because I feel like I haven't talked to you guys since June. I mean, I know we did the Lindsey Graham video. That was a one-off, but I didn't get to get my live in. But as far as me, life is good. The 4th was pretty cool for me. I actually went to Martha's Vineyard, which was really, really cool. Now, I will say, for a minute, I didn't think we was going to make it. So just to tie this into current events, if you remember, Orange Man decided that in D.C., where I live, he was going to have the largest fireworks show of all time. It was going to be the grandest, greatest thing for America 250 or Freedom 250 or whatever crap he had. And so he decided to have this setup where there's going to be 18 different locations where the fireworks just right now. Just for some context, normally here in DC, when they do the National Fireworks Show on the 4th of July, they shoot off about 20,000 rounds of explosives over the span of 10 minutes. he decided he was going to shoot off 850,000 rounds of explosives over the span of 40 minutes. And because of that, they needed extensive rehearsal time. So the airspace over DC was closed for all of July 4th and closed for the first portion of July 3rd. I flew to Martha's Vineyard on the 3rd. My flight was at 1 p.m. What you call the ground stop to all the flights also ended at 1 p.m. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we're going to get on this flight, go to Martha's Vineyard, because it's only like a 50-minute flight. It's literally up the street, all right? And I'm like, okay, cool. Mind you, I am not rich, by the way. I don't want y'all thinking Martha's Vineyard, I'm over here drinking wine with the diamonds in the glass like Lil' Kim and them. No, this was a few friends. We like, let's patch together something real quick. We'll get us a struggle Airbnb, get one of them cheap flights. I'll sit on the back of the plane with the engine and the snacks, and we'll get there. That was Martha's Vineyard for me. But anyway, so the week of July 3rd and 4th, there was this massive heat wave, especially on the East Coast. And on the morning of the 3rd, DC had a heat index of 113 degrees. Now, our plane had been sitting on the tarmac since 5 a.m. and couldn't fly out. So from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., it sat on the tarmac. And so while I'm at the airport, the flight keeps getting delayed. Like the flight was supposed to be like 1:06 or something like that, and they kept doing the patchwork delays where they just keep delaying every 20 minutes. Okay, 1:06, now it's going to be at 1:26. Now it's going to take off at 1:56. And they do this with us for like the next, how many hours? It was a few hours at least, right? At least 3 or 4, 5, 6 hours of delays, right? It's to the point where one of my other good friends who wasn't on the same flight with us, he had a flight that was leaving after ours and ended up getting on his flight, landing at Martha's Vineyard, and we were still at the gate waiting. So what ended up happening is, because it was so hot outside, because again, you had the fireworks thing, and you also had the air flyovers with the Blue Angels and all of that. That's really why the airspace was also closed. Because the plane sat on the tarmac since 5 a.m. and now it's 1 something, they couldn't cool the plane down. The inside of the plane, as far as the cabin, was like 130 degrees, and they couldn't get it to cool down. And because of that, it was also making the equipment kind of malfunction and all that. So they're finally like, oh, all is good. You guys can get on the plane, go for it. We're good to take off. At this point, I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get on this plane now, because you done said it was so hot that the equipment and stuff is malfunctioning. I watched too many Why Planes Crash episodes and all of the specials that are on Discovery Channel and the Science Channel and when engines failed and all. I done seen too many specials, so now I don't even want to get on this plane. I get on the plane anyway. I just say a strong prayer. They're claiming everything was good because it took a few hours to cool the plane down. We finally get in the air. Again, this is only supposed to be a 50-minute flight. So we're in the air. It's been like an hour, 20 minutes. And you know how, like, if you follow along, if you join the flight's Wi-Fi, they'll have the update with the plane and they'll say, oh, the plane has 10 minutes left to go, 15 minutes left to go. I'm looking. The plane has said we done landed already. We're supposed to be there. And I'm like, why are we still in the air? So then the captain comes on. He's like, attention, everyone. So it turns out the safety issue we thought we fixed, we weren't able to fix. Mind you, we 35,000 feet in the air. I'm already like, all right, damn, my mama told me to update my will. And like, so I'm like, oh Lord, now they about to tell us that the landing gear can't come down because the computers are messing up. And I'm like, Lord, I do not want to die today. I didn't even want to go on this trip, right? And so it's funny because as soon as he says that, like half the plane starts to gasp. You get the people that are about ready to start panicking and everything. And then he continues and he's like, and so what we're going to do is we're going to actually just go ahead and land in Boston. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm relieved that I'm not dying yet. But half the plane is pissed off because they want to land at Martha's Vineyard. I'm like, F that, land this thing. I am not trying to die. So we land in Boston. By the way, no disrespect to any of the people of Boston. Boston is really not one of my favorite cities to go to. For some reason, every time I go to Boston, something just be off in the air. I don't know. It might just be a Chicago Bulls Celtics thing. I don't know. But anyway, so the highlight was at least when we landed in Boston, they had our next plane already ready for us. They're like, yeah, as soon as y'all get off the plane, y'all are just going to get on the next one. Because what I thought was going to happen was we're going to land in Boston and they weren't going to have a plane for us and we would have had to just stay the night. Because some people were like, well, I'm just going to, drive there because I think it's, I don't know, maybe 2 hours and then you catch the ferry. But at that point, you're looking at the times of when the last ferry goes. Because again, Martha's Vineyard is an island. You either get on it by ferry or by flight. You can't drive to it, technically. Anyway, get on this plane. Fortunately, the flight is only 14 minutes. I said, thank God. Yes. All right. So 14 minutes. But then everybody was like, wait, if the flight was only 14 minutes, why didn't we just land in Martha's Vineyard? The pilot explained to us that because of the issues with the plane, the Martha's Vineyard Airport is so small that they don't have a maintenance hub. And if that big old giant plane were to land there, there's no way to get it to a maintenance hub. You have to figure out how to tow it, and maybe they got to drive it down the freeway because they probably wouldn't fly it. So they said it just makes more sense to land the plane in Boston and figure it out from there. So that was my trip to Martha's Vineyard. Now, once I got there, it was a great time. Had a wonderful, wonderful time. But just getting there, I was like, see, because I was just trying to skip town because I knew it was going to be some foolery with Orange Man and his stuff. But listen, when I was in that plane and he said that they didn't fix that maintenance issue, the way I was already changing the playlist on my iPod to gospel, like, okay, let me just get this right. Lord, I be playing with you sometimes, but I'm serious right now. And so, but yeah, as far as the 4th, lots and lots of shenanigans. But I did see that back here on the home front in DC, they still had the shenanigans. I saw the clips of the little Patriot front folks, those weird white dudes that walk around with the khakis and what else do they wear? The blue polos, and then they wear that big old goofy bag on their head, right? And mind you, they don't really do anything. They just walk in groups of like a dozen. Normally they hop in that U-Haul truck, and the U-Haul truck will pull over, and then they all get out the trunk, and then all they do is like just walk in lines. They don't say anything, just walking, right? Now, these are all your teachers and doctors and engineers and everybody else, but they got these sacks on their head. And so I saw this picture that had gone viral, and I know this is kind of old news at this point, but I'm still going to talk about it because it's my channel and I can do what I want. I kept seeing this image here, and I think many of you have seen it at this point. What is interesting with this image here, mind you, and again, on the 4th, it was a heat index of 115 degrees. Imagine how much hatred you have to have in your heart to get together with all of your crew, instead of being with your families, instead of being with your actual friend. Well, I guess they are friends. This is what they do. Y'all get together, you put on these hot layers, and they got the mask wrap and the shades and the hat, the polo, backpacks, khakis. You wearing all this hot stuff to walk around and do nothing. And then what makes it so entertaining, I love this woman's face. Like, God bless her. This is the face of, you don't scare me and y'all look stupid and I ain't got time for no foolery. And what makes it even more interesting is a lot of these dudes are punks. A lot of these folks can't fight. They're scary. We've seen a million clips of them getting chased back into their U-Haul. I guess they didn't take the U-Haul this day. The U-Haul must have broke down. They ain't had no gas. So, that's why they got on the metro. They got on the train with everybody else. Right? But they swear they are so tough. And the reality is, I don't think any of us are afraid of them. We just look at them like, y'all are idiots. Because who has this kind of time? And they're fighting for their life in the heat. All this heat. Old girl is just trying to get home. She ain't got time for no ish. And all of them knew this. They will sit here and do this power and numbers intimidation thing, but they know deep down inside they can't see it one-on-one with nobody on this train. A bunch of freaking losers. Seriously. Idiots. It's stupid. Anyway, just dumb. Stupid. Anyway, I want to drag Vivek Ramaswamy for a good minute. And I'm going to give y'all a heads up. This is going to be a very, very long, extended segment, just as a heads up, because I'm about tired of this and effort. So let me get this clip going, and then we're going to have us a conversation, if that's all right. Actually, let me read the comments real quick, because by the time I finish Vivek, I'm going to forget that y'all had some stuff. So let me just read like 5 comments, and we'll keep it moving. Let's see. Somebody said, do you feel that the captain explained things well so everyone knew what was going on? They did a better job after they told us we were landing in Boston, because by then I think the flight attendants knew what was happening. So to me, it wasn't something told us like it was a panic, but it still is kind of alarming when you hear, okay, you're 30,000 feet in the air and they're saying whatever they thought they fixed is not fixed. That you like, whoa. But while we were in the airport waiting with the delays and the delays, they kept giving us the update saying they're still working on it. And you could look out the window and see the maintenance crew all in the back of the plane and coming out with all kind of gadgets and equipments and pipes and stuff. And I'm like, can't y'all just get another plane? But, it is what it is. Let's see. Somebody said, "Oh no, that's scary as F." It was. I was like, not today. Because I got nervous for them 2 seconds. I haven't been that nervous since that time I told y'all I was at the Nats game and it was the mass. There was a shooting outside of the stadium, but the people in the stadium thought there was a mass shooter in the game, and you got 30,000 people running around, and it was just our luck. Me and my friend Whitney just said, "Hey, let's be random and go to a baseball game." And I had just said, man, this is actually really nice. This is a great thing to bring the kids out and stuff too. And just as I'm saying it, is when the pop, 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 pop goes off, I didn't hear it because the DJ was playing Ludacris Southern Hospitality. I'm thinking it's just part of the music. I'm like, yeah, they even jamming. And Whitney was like, whoa. And I'm like, what's your problem? She's like, I just heard gunshots. I'm like, what? And then when I look across, because we were on the side of the stadium that the back of it is like facing the water, like the Potomac River, and the side across from us is what faces South Capitol Street. So the shooting was on South Capitol Street with some people outside of the stadium, just some folks that got some beef and pop, pop, pop. So when you're looking across at the people who are sitting on the side that borders South Capitol Street, you just see hundreds of people getting up, running. And I'm like, oh, not right now. I don't want to die here. There's only 8 black people in this game. And I was praying that if this was some like sharpshooter type stuff, I was like, please don't be like some white supremacist stuff, because there's only 8 of us in here and we're going to, woo, these people around me going to turn on us and turn us. And fortunately, it wasn't nothing crazy like that. But yeah, that was the last time I've ever had that kind of nervousness. Let's see here. Listen, course correction. Michelle Obama was just on Martha's Vineyard dancing. We were all in the text group like, we clearly went the wrong week, because we I mean, I've met Michelle and Barack. I've met Barack twice and Michelle once, but still, I was like, damn, because Michelle was in there just having her time, and I was like, dang, man, I love that for her. But let's see. Last thing. Hi, Calvin. Are you going to the Easter Raid tour for the 10th anniversary of Insecure? Probably not. I did love the show, though. But okay, let's get to Vivek. Like I said, it's going to be a long portion. If you see me looking here, it's because I got a million notes that I wrote, so bear with me. All right, folks, let us go to the clip, because, you know, for some reason, we're on everybody's mind all the time. All right, let's get this man going. Let's get my sound cranking. Let me know if y'all can hear it, too, all right? All right, let's share that.
Aid, supposed aid from Lyndon Johnson's Great Society that actually rolled back some of the benefits that black families enjoyed, like a stable family foundation in the 1960s, no longer the case today, in part because the government gave them an incentive to live in single-parent households rather than dual-parent households. Affirmative action, effectively a cancer on our national soul, in part because it's a form of psychological slavery that holds black Americans back by teaching them that they can't get ahead without actually somebody giving them a boost.
Just for some context here, Vivek Ramaswamy, as you remember, attempted to run for president of the United States in 2024. He attempted to become the GOP nominee. Didn't happen. Orange Man gets in office, and then he was supposed to be a part of the DOGE team. He and Elon were going to be the orchestrators of the Department of Government Efficiency, and then he was pushed out. So now he is running for governor of the state of Ohio. And one of the things that he's always done is he loves, for some reason, to bring us into his conversations about any and everything. We've done a few videos dragging Vivek, but sometimes you got to drag people a few times because they don't learn. But what is very interesting to me, and this is so multi-layered, and there's so many things to say. There's nothing more funny than watching this guy sit here and pretend that he's not a beneficiary of affirmative action. Right? That's the part that gets me. That's the part that is the most hilarious. And it's interesting because the way that he looks at black folks is exactly how white folks look at him. He just can't see. Like, he doesn't have the self-awareness. And he has convinced himself that the accolades or whatever element of success that he has is based only on his merits and nothing else, which is always entertaining. And so here's my thing. You have some people who literally get a leg up through policy. Usually policy that became implemented because of the fighting and the work of black folks, right? They get a leg up, and the minute they come into some element of power or they get a little bit of prestige or anything, then they try to dismantle that policy once it gets, once they get their foot in the front door. And this goes back to that conversation I keep having about community versus like the individual, or when we talk about community and discernment, but when we specifically mean community and individual, he moves as an individual, right? It's the community and the communities of people that have fought to get whatever, rights and everything else that people have fought for since forever and a day, that he's able to even sit there and open his mouth to say that foolery, but he moves as an individual and he's willing to throw all that away because he feels that this is going to open some door for him, right? And if it's one thing for sure, Folks love to camp out on black people's business, right? While actively working to dismantle every element of black progress. And they love to speak in absolutes, right? They talk about us like we're some kind of scientific experiment, and they are all knowing about our plight and our experience, and only they alone can fix it. Never mind the nearly 50 million of us. We don't know anything, but he has all the answers, right? And so I want to go back to this line about the idea of thinking that black people move around with the psychological slavery, right? Because they love to, they will throw slavery in there. It's like sprinkles on top or like some parsley. Every time they want to say something crazy, throw the word slavery in there. Psychological slavery to feel that they can't get ahead without someone giving them a boost. First of all, that tells me exactly where his head is at, because collectively, black folks have never had that mindset ever. It's never been the mindset of, I can't do anything if somebody doesn't help me, right? And so the bigger conversation is, one, this is not Vivek's conversation to have or to lead, period, right? And it's not like this is somebody, and I'll say that, he has no history of advocating for black folks or black anything, so he doesn't get to nominate himself to speak on our behalf, or let alone speak about what is best for us, right? Because again, this is somebody who actively, when you're talking about the policy that he gets behind, actively works to dismantle any element of black progress, right? A lot of the policy that he proposed when he was trying to run for president, and even as he's running for governor right now, still works against black people. He, one, denies the existence of systemic racism, which also means that if he were to ever get in a position of power, he would do nothing to remedy it or to fight it because he doesn't believe it's a real thing. Two, he literally markets himself as the anti-woke candidate. He did that when he ran for president. He's doing it as he runs for governor. And we know what that language is rooted in. It's rooted in anti-blackness. It's rooted in the idea of everything is fine with what white folks are doing and everybody else needs to shut up and get with the program or get out the way. That's that whole anti-woke thing, to the point where people can't ever give a real definition of what wokeness is. I will say, he did have an interview where they asked him what his definition of it was. He pretty much painted this thing of highlighting the conversation of diversity and stating that diversity was used to weaponize the status quo of assimilation, which I'm like, well, at least he almost tried to give an answer, but you're still in some BS. Just understand anti-woke through the lens of white folks just means everything that ain't freaking white. That's the reality. He has campaigned to dismantle all elements of DEI, which is one of the main reasons why he was excited to be on the DOGE team, right? Again, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and they always leave out the A, which is accessibility. And he's also campaigned and ran on the idea of ending affirmative action, which I'm going to come back to. And of course, even as he ran for president, one of the things that he also wanted to do was implement a civics test for voters between the ages of 18 and 24. Understand, a civics test is no different than a literacy test. We know where literacy tests are rooted in. So when we're talking about the policy and the things that he wants to get behind, it's not really anything very favorable to us. But again, they love to speak on our existence and everything else. But my other thing is, for all of this merit he has, this man still is one. Excuse me. We watched this man run a business into the ground, and we've also watched this man become a scammer and make millions off the backs of other people. So really quick, I just want to go to this little article before I get to my main points. I just got to paint the picture we're dealing with here. All right. Now, as far as Vivek, let me make sure y'all can see. Yes, you can. Lovely. All right. Let's see here. Let's start with the basics. Now, this is from 2023. Ramaswamy has funded his campaign through the sale of over $32 million in Roy Vance stock, or REOI Vance stock, in February of this year. This could lead one to believe that Roy Vance, based in Bermuda, is thriving and that Ramaswamy is a great entrepreneur, except the company reported staggering losses of $1.2 billion in its financial report of March 2023. This isn't a one-time slump. In March 2022, when Ramaswamy was still Roy Vance's chairman, and a major shareholder, the company reported an annual loss of $924.1 million. Ramaswamy's defenders may argue that Roy Vance performed better during his tenure as CEO in 2021, but alas, the numbers tell a different story. The reality is that Roy Vance's finances were abysmal under Ramaswamy's watch. During his tenure in 2019, the company's net operating loss exceeded $530 million. By 2020, the losses had doubled to over $1 billion, accompanied by a 65% decline in revenue. Now, here's the other part that's interesting. Let's get to the scammeration, shall we? All right, let me scroll down, blah, 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 blah. Where's that scammeration piece? Hold on, there's some, because again, this man done lied about a whole, oh, here we go. Yet, this irony is not the worst of it. In 2015, there was another sort of affair involving Ramaswamy over Hegseth Science's Alzheimer's drug. In June 2015, Ramaswamy appeared on CSNBC to praise the Hegseth IPO, which soared to over $30 a share based on expectations surrounding its Alzheimer's drug. Interpridine, whatever it is. Okay. The drug was touted as a breakthrough, yet upon closer examination, the development fell apart. All right. Axivant had acquired the drug for $5 million in December of 2014, 6 months before the IPO, after the majority of phase 2 trials had failed to meet their primary endpoints. In 2010, Ramaswamy devised a solution. His mother, Dr. Geeta Ramaswamy, conducted a new phase 2 trial in 2015 involving 684 subjects. The trial conveniently claimed to demonstrate sufficient improvement to support phase 3 trials. The aftermath was a triumphant $350 million IPO in 2015, followed by a drastic fall. By September 2017, the stock had plummeted 75% after Ramaswamy and his mother announced the phase 3 trial failures. Subsequent trials continued to disappoint, culminating in a 99% loss in value and name change for the company. Just to break down a bit easier for y'all, there was an Alzheimer's drug, right? That's the Axivant. Now, the Axivant had already gone through 2 trials and failed. His company still bought the Axivant, whatever, for $5 million. Went on the media blitz like, oh, we just started some new trials. Things are looking really good. And man, this is about to cure Alzheimer's. And again, Alzheimer's is one of the things that definitely affects many Americans. It's one of the things we're fearful that we don't want our parents to get as they get older, so on and so forth. Lots of money to invest. So he goes on SNBC, he goes on CNBC, he goes on all of these different networks, does these conferences and goes at colleges and different conferences and get hype. And the IPO skyrockets, because he's given everybody the assurance that, hey, this third round of trials that my mother has kicked off, things are looking promising. They knew the trials weren't working. They knew it was some nonsense. And then once they got that high IPO, they sold off their portion, and then everything crashed, right? The medicine, the Axivant didn't work. That's how he pretty much became super wealthy. He became super wealthy by scamming, the scameration of it all. Now, because this is kind of a slippery slope when it comes to regulations and rules, he was never charged with anything, because it's pretty much just saying, well, he got out before everything hit the fan. So it's kind of like, it's almost like, picture like Fire Festival, but with medicine. Remember Fire Festival, where the guy hyped up this big festival even before the festival was ready. He went, found all the popular influencers, Kylie Jenner and whoever else all the white folks are really into, got them to post the orange square, and everybody wants to know what the orange square is. And then it turns out the orange square is Fire Fest, and Fire Fest is about to be the best festival ever. You're going to get to go to the Bahamas, and you get to swim with pigs, and you're going to be eating caviar and staying in a villa. And mind you, the organizer of this had none of this prepared. He hyped it up, sized it up, gassed it up, got all these people to pay for stuff, dropped thousands of dollars for this event, and he didn't even have the stuff together, and the event was a disaster. The concert never took place. The stage was never ready. There were never any villas. They weren't even on the initial island that it was marketed to, right? They ended up taking all this money from the people that were on the different island, and people that like ended up losing money, their livelihood, everything. Same kind of energy. So that's just Vivek with his scameration, while he wants to talk about what's going on within the Black household. Now let's actually get to this affirmative action piece. Then I'm going to drag some more. So just to clarify, because sometimes there are people who really do think affirmative action is just giving Black folks a pass to just be mediocre, which has never been the case. Now, understanding that affirmative action is something that was created to combat and remedy the harms that compound I'm sorry, let me slow down. I'm talking very fast because I get excited. I'm sorry, let me slow down. Affirmative action was created to remedy the harms and compound residuals of systemic racism, right? We saw different systems in the United States that disproportionately affected Black people in a way that was punitive, where we saw discrimination in housing, we saw discrimination in education, in healthcare, jobs, zoning laws, the judicial system, farming. We just talked about that on the last video, commerce, all sorts of things where literally Black folks had been left out of so much, and there was so much policy, and there were so many laws and ordinances and covenants that worked against us, where when we fast forward several generations, you have this massive wealth gap. You have this massive gap when it comes to education, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to property ownership, all these different things. And so the idea of affirmative action was to, one, remedy that, but also expand what you call the playing field, because for the longest, the playing field only consisted of one segment of the population, white men. Right? The framing and the setup of this country was created an environment where Black people were disproportionately left out of not only programs, but opportunities, right? We had a very punitive government that systemically created hardship and economic strife for Black folks through policy and through restrictions. Now, affirmative action was created to balance, like we said, that playing field through policy, right? Through enactment. And so again, people still love to assume that affirmative action just means unqualified black folks getting all the jobs because they're black, when in reality, I always ask to that same question, if that's the way you want to move, who's to say, and I always say, what made white people think they were the default when it came to skill, talent, and expertise? You ever notice that? Like when people talk about affirmative action, they always speak against it towards black folks, where it's like, yeah, unearned, didn't, now like the DEI terms, DEI hires, didn't earn it. And I always say to white folks, what made y'all the default? What made y'all the standard? Because we see that you guys are currently in charge of everything right now. Look how great things are going with all this expertise that y'all got, right? Notice whenever they bring up merit, it's with the assumption that every white person in America has earned every position and accolade or accomplishment that they have, right? Every time they bring up merit, it's presented by the way of assuming that white folks are the only demographic in this country, specifically white men, that have done everything right, and the rest of us have all got in by luck or got in by a handout. Like that's literally the language that's always there. And the reality is, we've already talked about how if we want to talk about handouts, if we want to talk about the lack of merit, if we really want to talk about DEI, white folks have benefited from it the most, right? White folks are the demographic in this country that have gotten the most federal handouts from the government, whether that was everything that was included with the New Deal, whether that was everything that was included with the GI Bill, which black folks were left out of in the same way that we were left out of the New Deal, whether it was the FHA program, which pretty much indirectly built our middle class through housing. Again, something black folks were left out of, but white folks got to benefit from. Even legacy admissions with these universities, white folks benefited from, we were left out. So we were left out of the New Deal, the GI Bill, FHA program, and legacy admissions has been something that we kind of have been pushed out of because, again, it was, you know, you get your white relatives that went to whatever university in 18 whenever, and you just keep the legacy going that way. So there's all these different loopholes that have been there to benefit white folks in every capacity, right? I didn't even get to entertainment and everything else, but I'll just leave it at that. And so when we're talking about affirmative action, again, affirmative action is there to ensure that the entire talent pool is being considered and not just a segment. Pretend, God forbid, that you have some crazy terminal disease that has never been heard of before. And let's just say they tell you that you can pick any team of 10 doctors to cure you, and they're going to do it for free. Are you going to be somebody who says, well, I only want the white doctors that are from the United States? Or are you going to be somebody who's like, let me do my research and see what the scientists and the doctors are doing in China, what they're doing in Europe, what they're doing in South Africa, what they're doing in Ghana, what they're doing in Brazil? Like, would you rather only have a handful of 10 white doctors that are from the US that you think know everything? Or would you rather look and make sure you scale the entire globe for every doctor that specializes in whatever it is that you have, so that you can get the best possible chances of surviving by having the 10 best of the best serve as the experts for your experience, right? That's all affirmative action is, making sure that we're not leaving out the talent pool. Why do you think college sports got so good, right? Think back to when they finally integrated the schools and the universities and the colleges. What's the first thing all these white schools did? They went right into the black neighborhoods and recruited all the black athletes because they were like, damn, you know, we thought we were great at basketball. We thought we were great at football, but these ones hit. All right, next thing you know, you got recruiters going all into rural Mississippi, rural Alabama, parts of Arkansas, Texas, going into Brooklyn, getting these athletes, so on and so forth. That's how it's always been. So it's about the idea of expanding the pool. Same thing with like the NBA, right? Once the NBA got more diverse or the NFL got more diverse, the games got better. The talent got more intense. Remember that time we did the clip of the gymnastics at the very first Olympics that was televised, and it was the white lady running, and all she did was like a cartwheel? Versus today, when you look like a Simone Biles or somebody who they just wah, 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 expanding the talent pool, utilizing the idea of getting the best of everything. And you're not assuming that the best is only coming from one pocket of people, but you open the door and look at everything and say, okay, you right? That's what that's about. Because the reality is, even if we talk about the idea of science and healthcare, how do you think we've gotten to all of these advancements in science and healthcare, especially when you're talking about people having longer lifespans? And there's been things like polio and all this stuff has gotten cured. That wasn't because we only stuck with white doctors from wherever. It's because even when you look at something like, you know, National Institutes of Health, I know they're based in the US, but they partner with scientists and labs all around the world. All these folks have conferences and they share their resources and everything to help, you know, create and find remedies for whatever the issues are. And even when we're talking sciences, it's not even just about the doctors. If you're trying to figure out a cure for sickle cell, would it make sense to only have white patients be your trial, patients, when sickle cell disproportionately affects black folks more than it affects white folks? Or even like what killed my father, scleroderma, something that's normally found in black women. Would it make more sense to only have white folks be the test trial folks, or does it make more sense to get the population of the people that it affects the most, right? That's what affirmative action does. It, again, scales everything, incorporates everything, utilizes the idea of ensuring that before we have these definitive answers about something, we've checked all the boxes. We've made sure we looked everywhere. That's what affirmative action was about. And so when you don't do that, when you choose to only work with one pool of applicants, when you choose to let one pool of applicants always be the default, what ends up happening is you start to get built up mediocrity. You start to get folks who move as the default so they don't challenge themselves. You start to get folks who don't feel that they have to try because they know that it's already guaranteed. And when we fast forward, look at your presidential cabinet. A cabinet full of entitled, unqualified white folks who don't know how to do anything, right? Every agency who has some new Trump appointee it's an S-word show at the moment, right? Silliness. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. But anyway, going back to Vivek, it's interesting because they love to take a portion of a fact and then use it to paint a full picture when they're talking about black folks. And they love to do that. Because again, this man is literally saying that black folks were better under Jim Crow. That's pretty much what he's saying, right? The idea of affirmative action and talking about Johnson's, greater society, which again, that ties into the civil rights legislation and everything else that took place, where again, we're going to open these playing fields. He's pretty much saying that somehow we were better off in the 60s, and he's going to utilize the conversation of the black household. And I'll say this. Now, it is no secret that when we do talk about welfare, there are some issues with the welfare system that do pretty much create a space where, yes, it actually, as an end result, does somewhat push the man out of the house. But if you're going to have that conversation, then can we paint the full picture? Can we talk about what welfare was before they decided that too many black folks were getting it and they started to make it punitive? Because initially, when you're talking about the entire welfare system, again, this was specifically for white women who were widows or who had husbands who could no longer work because they were injured. I don't know, they got sick in the coal mine or something. That was welfare. Black folks weren't even eligible for welfare when it first kicked off after 1935 because, one, when we talk about the late 1930s and 1940s, a lot of black folks were paid under the table. Their paychecks weren't even in an official system, so they weren't eligible for the programs. As we fast forward to the era when black folks were finally eligible, when we get to about the 1960s, then they said, okay, it's too many of y'all on it. Let's start doing some things to make it a bit more punitive. This is when the states start having their own rules with what they want to do with welfare because there wasn't a federalized rule on how things went, and states got to do whatever they want to do. And one of the main things that they jumped into was the man of the house rule, where, okay, well, push the guy out the house, right? So if you're going to have that conversation, if you're going to talk about that, then you also have to talk about the racist origins of how we got there. You just don't talk about the end result and paint it as if black folks just woke up and said, oh, we don't want to work. We don't want to do nothing. We just want to leave. We don't want to raise our kids. We don't want to do nothing. We don't know how to do nothing. We just need some government cheese. Like, that's literally how these fools, that's how he moves. But just for some stats and some numbers here, let's just use 1960 since he swears things were so great. If we talk about 1960, the black poverty rate in 1960 was 55.1%. The white poverty rate was 15%. Again, black poverty rate in 1960, 55.1%. Today, it is 18.4% against white folks, 7.6%. That's black poverty. If we want to talk black women mortality rate when it comes to childbirth, in 1960, for every 100,000 births, there were 102.8 black women who would die. In comparison to white women's 25.1. Again, for every 100,000 black women who went to go give birth, 102.8 of them, we'll just round up to 103. 103 of them died in comparison to the 25 white women. Today, that number has dropped to 50.3 in comparison to 14.2 white women. Now, the saddest part with that is 8% of those deaths are still preventable. But again, because we have legislation and because we have a lot of practices that still work against black people collectively, this is why we're still seeing these really, really high numbers. All right. So that was childbirth. Let's talk unemployment rate. 1960, the black unemployment rate was 10.2% compared to the white unemployment rate of 4.9%. When we fast forward to, we can use 2025 at the moment, 6.9% today. So again, 10.2% in 1960, 6.9% right now. And it was lower than that before Crazy Man got in office and started messing up stuff and gutting everything and gutting all these programs and cutting the government and getting rid of DEI, and all these black folks got fired and lost their jobs, right? So again, the black unemployment rate today is 6.9% in comparison to the white populations of 3.6%. When we talk about high school education, in 1960, 38.6% of black folks had a high school diploma. Today, that's 81.1%. If we're talking about 1960 with white folks, or not even, I don't F them out, let's focus on us for now. Even if we're talking college, 1960, 3.1% of black folks had a bachelor's degree. Today, that percentage is 26.2, right? When we're talking black home ownership, 1960, 38%. Today, it's 44%. Right? In comparison to white folks in 1960, theirs was 65%. Now they're up to 74%. And the piece that's left out of that conversation is the conversation of redlining, right? And so the thing is, Vivek, if you want to sit here and start talking about the 60s and how great it was in your mind, then can we paint the full picture? Because in addition to everything else that was happening, you're also taking out the conversation of the state-sanctioned violence that was against black folks. As black folks continue to fight for any element of just having civility and having the rights that everybody else had, they had to be met with hoses. You had the lynchings, you had churches burned down, you had people assassinated, all these different things. But you want to sit here and harp on a right-wing talking point that's utilized to somehow paint black people as their own oppressors because you think it's going to get you a foot in the door with white folks. And the other thing that I want to clarify too, for a lot of the folks that always try to say, oh, we were better during segregation, blah, 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 blah. Segregation was not about being in close proximity to white folks. Nobody wanted to be around that. You think black folks that watch their folks get lynched all the time, or watch these racist white mobs pop up everywhere, or see these Klan rallies, or see all of the horrible things that people would do, like pour bleach in the pool because they don't want their kids to get in it? You think black folks wanted to be around that? No. This was a conversation about commerce and taxes. Black people were paying the same taxes as everybody else, but could not use the same hospitals, could not go to the same schools, could not use the same public services, could not use the same public facilities. Separate but equal was not separate but equal. And a lot of times, even when we're talking about property taxes, black folks were actually paying a higher amount in property taxes than white folks, but they didn't have better neighborhoods. They didn't have better roads. They didn't have better pipes. They didn't have better wiring as far as electricity, all these different things. The fight to end segregation was making sure that black folks got exactly what it was they paid into when it came with the system, which meant that whatever they paid taxes for, they had privy and access to. It wasn't about being allowed to go eat at the white lunch table. That was one piece of it. But to be honest, nobody wanted that bland food to begin with. But it was the message behind it saying, no, we're paying taxes for these services. The government claims that they protect all citizens. You don't get to sit here and say that you're not going to service just because of who we are. Right? That's the reality of what that was. But people have tried to kind of take history because, one, we're in this era of anti-intellectualism where lots of people want to almost be the gatekeepers of knowledge through anti-intellectualism and just spread any and everything out there to appear to, what I say, out-knowledge the room, when half the time they don't even know what they're talking about. They're just talking and saying anything. This is why we keep seeing an increase of a lot of really stupid talking points that go viral, and then people latch onto them like, yeah, I was trying to tell everybody. Okay, whatever. So anyway, getting back to Vivek, because again, it's just when I keep thinking of segregation, I think of all the black folks who had detrimental health issues, or there was some kind of emergency and they couldn't use a nearby hospital and they had to go a different distance somewhere off. You know how many people died as a result of that? How many people died because they weren't allowed to use the ambulance service that they paid taxes for? How many people had some kind of issue where they needed the police to show up and the police didn't come because they don't come to that neighborhood? Right? How many people, when it even comes to just environmental racism, when some of these cities would build levees and stuff to protect against floods or hurricanes, certain neighborhoods weren't a part of that protection, right? That's what segregation was all about, ending that, making sure that as we pay these taxes, as we do our due diligence, we are afforded the same opportunities as everybody else, and we're not punished because of who we are, what we're born into. That's what really the fight about ending segregation was about. But they have romanticized it into this idea of thinking we just wanted to be around white folks. Okay. Anyway, back to Vivek. Vivek to me is somebody who feels that his accolades will get him closer to whiteness. And the reality is they make an example of him out of this every single time. You know what? Do I have that example? Oh, I have to show y'all. Okay. This is what we're going to do because I have the perfect example. Give me one sec. Where is that clip? Damn, the one clip I was supposed to have, I ain't had it ready, but you know what, we'll still pull it up. Give me 1 second. Let me look myself up really quick. Because this is the funniest part. We're gonna take a trip back to a different video that I've done before. Here we go. Where's it at? Where's that piece I need? Yes, here we go. Okay. So one of the funniest things that took place was literally, Because remember, Vivek ran for president, remember? And I'm going to say there was nothing more funny than me literally being on a live and he dropped out of the presidential race while we were live. All right. Can we go to that clip? Because when I tell you that made my day, let's take a field trip back 2-3 years. Okay, this is Magic School Bus. We're going back in time real quick. All right. Action. Just said it's coming to fruition. So again, remember how I said, you can sit here and be a mouthpiece for white supremacy and play the game, but eventually there's not a glass ceiling for you. There is a cement ceiling because they're going to put the big stop there where, all right, you've gotten to as far as you're going to get. You've done what it is that we enjoy. But at the end of the day, we're always going to go back to our own, which is what white America is doing to Vivek Ramaswamy. He does not even stand a chance. And so now that we get to that, think of this. This man has said every white nationalist talking point that you can think of, right? And he right now I haven't seen the numbers in the last 2 hours, but before I got on the live, he had less than 8% of the vote, right? I think Trump was at like 52, DeSantis might have been at 18 or 19, and Nikki was at 18 or 19, and Ramaswamy was in a far distant fourth, right? And this is where it gets even funnier, because again, who are the ones in the bottom two right now? Nikki, Ramaswamy. Trump didn't even campaign in Iowa. Barely. Trump is trying to take care of all of his cuckoo shenanigans stuff he got going with the court cases and everything. And DeSantis, I don't even know what his platform is. He has had a horrible platform since day one. Like I said, all he has is wokey woke, 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 wokey woke, woke, woke. That's all he talks about. And still, even DeSantis outpolled and outperformed Nikki. Now, this might be different by the time I turn this thing off and go look. But right now, DeSantis is still number 2. But again, Ramaswamy, if I put Ramaswamy and DeSantis in a room together, they both pretty much say exactly the same thing. Ramaswamy, why do you think you were not selected? Be for real. Oh, he quit. He's endorsed Trump for president. I knew he was going to do that. See, now he's trying to secure his vice president option. He's hoping Trump will bring him on as vice president. Play silly games, win silly prizes. And so that's Vivek Ramaswamy, who I was just talking about earlier. You did all of that. All right. So anyway, going back to what I was saying. So you sit there and you do all that foolery, and then look how everything plays out for you. And what makes it interesting, like I said, there was nothing more entertaining than being on live and this man drops out. And going back, like I said, at the time, he was running for the GOP nomination. It was him, it was Nikki Haley, it was DeSantis, and it was Orange Man. And again, he and DeSantis had exactly the same platform on everything. But he wasn't polling at the 21 and 22% that Nikki Haley were polling at, or that DeSantis was polling at. He was at 8%. Why do you think that is? Because at the end of the day, no matter how many white talking points he wants to latch onto, they're never going to see him as one of them, ever. And he hasn't learned that yet. And every time he kind of gets reminded by that, for some reason, he decides to jump onto some anti-black talking point, and then we become collateral because of his failures, which is very interesting to me. And so the reality is, when it comes to being a token, especially for somebody like a Vivek, they will let Vivek get a great media job. They'll give him a great job at Fox News. He can probably make $20 million a year at Fox News and have a great time, right? They will let him have all kind of, opportunities. But when it comes to something like policy that will also affect white folks, they're not going to give it to him because they already look at Vivek as a problem of what's wrong with America, because Vivek isn't supposed to slip through the cracks. What Vivek has, if he were in a position to somewhat become a politician, that's what white Americans feel that they're supposed to have, not him. And the fact that this man is also a millionaire, to white folks who already hate everybody that's not white, they see that as somebody who slipped through the cracks and the system again benefited somebody else when it was supposed to benefit them. Right? That's how white folks move when it comes to that. And so the fact that he thought he was going to be president is entertaining. And what gets me even more is Vivek is only 2 generations in. His parents got here. He just got here. Right? And so for me, in a climate where you're literally one piece of legislation away from being shipped off across the water in a cargo ship because you got a president that hates everybody, this is how you want to move? Like, birthright citizenship was just on the docket in the Supreme Court a month ago. Had the Supreme Court decided to gut that and then ride on the Trump train because Trump also wants to end chain migration, you would have been on the boat back. But you worried about us, right? Like, that's the part that I don't get. And we're also in this era where you have a current administration that's also now doing denaturalization. Let's say that happened. Let's say you denaturalized Vivek's parents. And let's say Trump was able to get rid of chain migration. Where do you think you were going to be going? After all that tap dancing, after all them white talking points, after trying to play the game, they would have sent you out of here and sent you across the water with the rest of them. But again, y'all want to sit here and keep running behind these folks, thinking that if you throw out all the anti-black talking points, it's going to get you some brownie points. It's never going to get you into a space where you get to be white. You're just doing the work for them. And when the work is complete, who do you think they get rid of next? The tokens. Tokens always get spent, right? So many move with the mindset of thinking that they will get further in life if they latch onto anti-blackness. Because why are we on your radar? Right. And for you to be running for governor of Ohio, have you even reached out to like black folks to see like, hey, what is it that you actually need? What can I do to earn your vote? Or are you just spending all this time painting the narrative of, well, whatever's wrong in your life is wrong because the government handed y'all a bunch of stuff and y'all didn't work hard enough? Because again, he speaks about black folks in a position of absolutes as if he knows everything. Right. And really, again, he's running out of tricks. And every time he runs out of tricks, he got some anti-black talking point to throw out there. We already saw how Ann Coulter cooked them that one time where Ann Coulter said, hey, I love all of your policy. I agree with all of it, but I would never vote for you because you're an Indian. And not, like I said, the last 3 times I brought this up, it wasn't even that because you're Indian, but because you're an Indian. She otherized you. She made sure to reignite and reiterate the fact that she sees herself as above you and you are beneath her. Even with all of your accolades, you are worth more than her. And you are still beneath her in her eyes. And then you sat there and took it like an idiot. And then go tweet, I'm just so glad we can have these conversations. Get up. Get a backbone, right? And so again, you have gone so far down the line, especially somebody like a Vivek, he's gone so far down the line of trying to be the model minority that his entire personality has become his work. And he has created a space where he thinks that's what's going to open the door, but that's actually worked against him. Because remember, he pissed off all them white folks when he said that statement about American culture spends too much time worried about prom kings and homecoming games and not enough STEM. And he pretty much told white folks that a lot of y'all are mediocre and aren't skilled enough, and that's why we got to start bringing in people from other countries to do the work that you guys can't do. Look where that got him. He didn't even get to make it through DOGE. Orange Man got in office. He was ready to do the DOGE with Elon, and they were like, actually, you know what? We don't need you. You can go. Pushed him right on out of there. It was like, you're not about to tell these white folks what they can't do, right? Yeah, they're going to chop down the federal government and everything, but you won't get to have a say in it because you're not supposed to be in this position. So you go run for governor of Ohio. And they pushed him right out of there. They show him time and time again that they don't want him around. And I mean, he throws everything at the wall to try to appease these folks. My favorite thing, this is my favorite image I love to look at right here. Because what are we doing? He said, I'm one of you. I'm just a good old American, right? Thought this was going to help him get through the door. They laughed in your face. You have literally erased your entire identity to try to assimilate into a group of people that don't want you around. And at the same time, rather than finding camaraderie with other marginalized groups of people that if we all work together, we could get so many great things done, you have chosen to choose the side of whiteness, thinking it was going to get you further along. And now you have to run around here tap dancing and walking on eggshells to appease the very group of people that don't want you around to begin with. Your entire livelihood is dependent upon their acceptance. That's a crappy bubble to live in. And it's interesting because, like I said, you, in addition to that, it's like he's based his entire identity and persona around a lived experience, which is, let me say that again. He's based his entire identity on a lived experience of a collective that he's not a part of, right? He loves to latch onto white grievances. And I'm like, you realize the grievances are about you. It's not about, I mean, they got their way about black folks, but they get really pissed when they see people like you come up and get through the door and get the luxury to make millions of dollars after scamming everybody. Right? So it's to the point where now you're trying to align with their grievances when in reality, their grievance is your existence. While you sitting here with this cowboy hat on. Talking, you're a real American. All right. Yeah. Okay, Vivek. A mess. And what's interesting is deep down inside, I would say, the accolades don't appease him. Or let me say, his wealth and accolades don't appease him because he recognizes that in the eyes of those who hate his existence, they don't care about that. And I think it makes him feel inadequate, which is why he has an obsession with wanting power and wanting to run in politics. Because if he were able to get elected and get sworn in into some kind of position, now he's in the same paradigm or the same spectrum of the people he aspires to be like. Again, like I said this on the last time, I think you got a lot of wealthy people who, once they hit a certain amount of wealth, the threshold of happiness, it drops down. They need something else, and they become associated and obsessed with the idea of gaining power. Look at somebody like Elon Musk. That man has all the money in the world and still wants to be, he wants more. Because it's not enough, right? Still wants power. And I think somebody like a Vivek Ramaswamy, again, he has the success, he has the millions, he has all of that, but he doesn't have the respect of white America. And it drives him crazy, which is why he keeps trying to run for office. Like, that's how I kind of see it. And, you know, the other part is every time the real him slips out, they remind him. Look at how, when we're talking about the presidential election, when he ran, when his wife did that town hall and they asked all those questions and started chewing him out, right? Or even when they bring up the fact that he's Hindu and they throw that and weaponize that against him as why they won't vote for him. No matter how many anti-black talking points he throws out there, white folks aren't going to see past the fact that he's not a white American. They're not going to see past the fact that he's not a Christian. They're going to see all of the things that they're afraid of, and they see it in him. So no matter how hard he dances, no matter how many crazy talking points he goes out there and says or tries to make it seem like racism isn't that bad, or systemic racism doesn't exist, or affirmative action tells black folks to psychologically be slaves and think they can't get a leg up without a handout, you're never going to be accepted by them. And you better pray you win in Ohio, because if you lose that race in Ohio, we're going to be right back here and I'm going to be dragging you some more. But I'm not done, because we still got a whole lot more to say, right? Anyway, so that was just the last thing I needed to get out. But let's get into your history, because if we want to talk about the subject of government programs, you're literally in this country as a result of the work of black folks. You're literally sitting there in the space that you sit in because of the suffering that black folks had to go through, which ended up benefiting everybody else. And I think a lot of communities tend to forget that. They get to ride the coattails of everything that we've had to deal with, and then they come in here and start shitting on us, right? And so my thing is, how do you come from a population that was discriminated against so heavily and then become exactly what was the oppressor to your community, to somebody else, right? Let's dig in. We're about to go on a history lesson, so I need y'all to buckle up, because we got a story to tell here. All right, let me share this image. Okay, they have to get that tomorrow. Somebody, everybody else want to text you when you're doing a live. All right, so this image here, ladies and gentlemen, this is a man. Let me scroll my notes together. All right, this is a man named Bhagat Singh Ten, right? Now, this man was Indian, and in 1913, he moved to Seattle. Now, let's talk about the makeup of the United States at the time. There were about 14.5 million people who immigrated to the United States between 1900 and 1920. Of those 14.5 million, only 8,000 were from South Asia. That was 0.0086%. This was a population that was heavily, heavily discriminated against, right? So bad to the point where in 1911, the U.S. Immigration Commission called Indians specifically the least desirable race of immigrants admitted thus far. This population, unfortunately, was public enemy number one to white Americans. They were one step below the Chinese population at the time. Remember, the United States, again, was in competition with all these different countries, and they wanted, because we're now coming into the space of the United States identifying as white, right? Where people, there's language of whiteness, right? Where a lot of European immigrants that were coming from Europe are starting to band together and create the term of whiteness. And this mainly came from the conversation of unions, where, again, folks from Poland recognized that if they connected with folks that immigrated from Italy and that immigrated from Germany and from the UK and from all these other places that were white countries, if we got together and started moving as white, we can protect our jobs from all these other groups of people that are coming in here, the immigrant populations from wherever, and this also includes black folks. So let's come together under the term of whiteness. And so when we talk about the United States history, let's just talk about naturalization. Right, and I want you to remember this guy's name, because we're going to come back to him. So you have the Naturalization Act of 1790. This is the act that pretty much gave citizenship to freed white men of good character. Now, the one rule that they did have was you had to have lived in the country for 2 years before you could naturalize. So if you were a white man that moved, I'm going to put him back up in a second. So if you were a white man that moved to the United States from Switzerland, you had to be here for 2 years and be in good standing before you could naturalize and become a U.S. citizen. Now, America is so racist and so evil that, again, they were feeling some kind of way, because then they even started turning on the white immigrants that were coming in. So then in 1795, they changed the rule and said, instead of 2 years, you got to do 5 years in order to become a citizen. But that wasn't enough. So then in 1798, they changed the rule again and said, instead of 5 years, you got to be here for 14 years before you can become one of us, right? Then in 1802, when productivity and stuff started being affected, they said, okay, we was just playing. We're going to drop it back down to 5 years. And what we'll also add is children who are born to U.S. citizens that happen to be abroad at the time can also become citizens, right? Then we get to 1864. We're going to fast forward, right? That's the Immigration Act of 1864. And there was a commission that was created to increase immigration. They recognized that the country could get a lot better off if we increasing the immigration, because now we're coming into our industrial age and we need to build more and build a whole lot faster. So who can we get in here? So then 1870, they extend this Naturalization Act to black folks, right? But specifically black folks that were the descendants of freed slaves pretty much. Those who had already been here. All right, y'all can finally become citizens, right? We kind of talked about this some lives back, right? Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm just going to say there were 10 more additional amendments to this Naturalization Act before 1917. And the majority of them were what you would call anti-Asian. They were against specifically the Chinese population. A lot of, because remember, this is the Chinese exclusion era. They would push, they didn't want them around. So they came up with 10 additional amendments. So then we get to 1917. And in 1917, we have the Immigration Act of 1917. Now, there were some limitations, and I want to share this image with you all. There was an area called the barred or Asia Pacific barred zone. There was a region of the world that they did not want coming into the United States. So if you look at this map here, you can see India, you can see, let's see, that's Indonesia, that's, let's see, that looks Oman, Pakistan, Nepal, Kazakhstan, some parts of China, Vietnam. You can see Korea, or it was just Korea at the time. It wasn't North and South Korea yet. You see all these different countries, right? And so this is the era of when they were fearful of there being an Asiatic invasion. And so they started to create all of this policy to try to literally make it so that Asian folks, and specifically people from South Asia, like remember, this is South Asia, this is Southeast Asia, but South Asia was really where they didn't want people coming from. And what makes it interesting is even when we look here at the Philippines, at this point, the Philippines is a U.S. territory, and even they couldn't come over here. It's like, yeah, we took over your country, but you still can't come over here. So you have that going on. Now, let us go back to our guy. Let me pull his picture back up. So we're going to bring this story back around here. All right. Again, so back to the Indian man, right? So again, Bhagat Singh in 1917 decided that he was going to apply for citizenship. Now, what did we just say happened in 1917? The Immigration Act of 1917, where they had the barred Asiatic zone, right? That the very region in which he is from is a part of the region that is not allowed to naturalize in the United States because of the fear of the Asiatic invasion. But anyway, he submits his citizenship application in 1917. And his justification was because, again, he started moving just like Vivek. He was a part of the well-to-do Indian population. He came from a little bit of money, and he considered himself upper class. And as a matter of fact, he would check the white box whenever he had to apply for something. And this actually was something that did work for some populations. So some populations, like people that are from Syria, Armenia, and Afghanistan, if they looked white enough, some of them could check the white box and get away with it. So there were a few who were able to get in, get citizenship and everything else like that. As a matter of fact, he checked all the boxes. He played the games. He made sure that he was in good standing. He even joined the military. Hold on, let me get the military picture up here. Boom, right? He joined the military. This is him at, well, today it is Joint Base Lewis McChord. I grew up, it was called Fort Lewis, and back then it was Camp Lewis. This is in Washington State. So he enlisted in the Army, right? And when he enlisted in the Army, because of that, the United States government granted him citizenship. A win, right? Right? He got a citizenship. He joined the U.S. forces. He's going to fight for this country. Now he's a citizen. A win, right? No. 4 days later, the federal government revoked his citizenship, said, absolutely not. You are not. Nope. We already said you can't be part of that. You can take a bullet for this country, but you cannot be a member of this country. No. So what ends up happening? He reapplies in 1919 and stuff is going through. However, there's a federal agent from the Bureau of Naturalization that pushes back and is like, no, he is not one of us. Because he was, again, he's applying under the guise of being white. They're like, nope, you are not one of us. No. Anyway, after all that fighting, he's granted citizenship on November 18th of 1920. A win, right? All good. Like he done went through and they, they revoked the citizenship, but now he has it back. So this definitely has to be a win, right? Nope. Government steps in. They said, nope, this ruling will not stand. And the government decided that they wanted to prove that Indians were not white people. And again, the Department of Justice saw this and said, yeah, he can't be a citizen. You know how bad it is if you're an individual and you get your citizenship and the federal government comes after you and decides to make you the example of why they're going to go after your entire population. That's just how bad the United States was, right? So it ends up going to the Supreme Court. All right. And let me tell you what his team decided to push. They stated that as a high caste Indian, Tin was racially pure because of the high caste families did not intermarry with other communities. They were using the argument that in India, he came from a high caste family, and that caste that he was in did not intertwine or intermingle or intermarry with members of other castes that were beneath theirs. And so because of that, they were from the upper echelons of society. Remember when we talk about community and discernment versus individualism? Okay, moving is individualism. So we're going to throw everybody under the bus so we can get our leg up. So in addition to that, they said because they did not go and intermingle and make and procreate with other groups, they had a pure blood, right? And they stated that because of the purity he shared, because of the purity, as far as him not having the bloodline of anybody else from any other caste system in the country of India, he shared a common Aryan ancestry with Europeans because he is white, right? They literally started going to the Caucasus Mountains and pulling way back in time and trying to say, okay, if we go back to them cave years and we talk about the Caucasus Mountains and everything else like that, yes, Aryan meaning pure, which will equate to Caucasian, which equates to white. I am white. So you guys got to let me be a citizen because I'm pure blood. I don't got nothing else mixed in me. I'm more pure blood than some of these folks coming from Germany who got a bit of Russian in their blood, right? And so Supreme Court says, no, absolutely not. And they rejected it. And their response was a blonde Scandinavian and a brown Hindu may have once had a common ancestor. However, the average man would see unmistakable and profound differences between them today. In other words, you don't look white enough, so you are not white. So what ends up happening is that, again, the citizenship is stripped. And when they strip the citizenship from this guy, there's a domino effect because now the United States goes after everybody because white America loves a domino effect when they get permission to be even more terrible. And so they hop on, and next thing you know, you have all these folks who start losing their citizenship. And so you have 70 naturalized citizens who get their citizenship restricted between 1923 and 1926. And you have many people who end up losing their livelihood. So let's go to another story because we're going to keep this going here. All right. So let's go to this guy because now this is the conversation when we talk about community, right? This guy, I keep saying this guy's name wrong. Bhagat Singh Ting, whatever his name was, right? He chose individualism over standing up and speaking for his community. He wanted to be a citizen. He said to hell with everybody else. And because of his actions, right, now his entire community is collateral. So now we get to this guy, right? Now this man here, this man is named Vaishno Dasbagi. I might be saying the name wrong. Forgive me if I'm saying these pronunciations wrong, right? Now he is somebody who lived in the United States. He played the game. He even was able to hide his accent. You know, he had a store. He did everything right. He stayed out of trouble. He raised a family here. And again, he was just trying to live the American dream. But as a result of that Supreme Court decision, his citizenship was revoked and he was denaturalized. Now, the thing about citizenship in the United States, if you were not a citizen of the United States, you cannot own property. You cannot operate a business. So this man ends up losing his livelihood, loses everything. And you know what happens? He realizes that he has no future. So he chooses to take his own life. But before he does so, he literally writes a letter to the town newspaper explaining his plight and why everything that happened was wrong and why the United States will be the reason why his family no longer has a husband. This man literally killed himself, right? Because this is somebody who worked for however many decades and to build up everything and lost it all because of white racism, right? The very racism that Bhagat Singh Ting didn't fight against. He only fought for himself to get his citizenship and threw everybody else as collateral. The idea of painting himself to be, oh, I'm one of the upper class ones or I'm the upper echelons of Indian society. I'm not like the rest of them. All that did was vilify the rest of his collective, the rest of his community. So then when the United States decides they want to make examples out of everybody else, they can literally utilize his words against his own community. And that's exactly what they did. And so this man kills himself. And it doesn't stop there because right after that, they go after the Mexican community and then they go after the Afghan community. And then it gets so bad, right? In 1924, you have Coolidge who signs the exclusion bill, which banned immigrants from the entire Eastern Hemisphere, right? It was like, just to make sure we don't have no more problems. If you're even from that side, don't worry about coming over here. The whole Eastern Hemisphere, can't none of y'all come over, starting effective now, right? Now, Bogazing 10 ends up getting his citizenship in 1935. And it's only because there's a law that's created that states all military veterans of the United States should become citizens. So he becomes a citizen, not because he fought for his collective and fought for everybody else. He becomes citizen by default because of a law that's out there, right? And so I want to keep going a little bit deeper, right? We're going to keep going, right? So then let's jump to 1946. You have the Luce Seller Act. Now, remember how I said that the Philippines were a part of the U.S. territory, but they still couldn't come in because they were part of that barred zone? Do I need to pull the image back up? I certainly can. Let's pull that image up one last time just to really drive the point here. All right. So again, Asia Pacific barred zone. All of this, y'all can't come over here. But you got the Philippines, which is the U.S. territory. But finally, in 1946, the Luce Seller Act says, all right, Filipinos and Asian Indians, y'all can come, right? Sounds like a win, right? Finally, yeah, they can come over. Yeah, we're starting to break apart that barred zone. No, because you know what? America loves to play in people's face. This was the rule. We're going to let y'all come over here, but only 100 from each country can come. Mind you, the population of the United States at the time was 141 million people in 1946, but only 100 from each region. And you got to remember, if I'm just speaking about India specifically, if we're talking about childbirth rates in India in 1946, the average family had 5 or 6 children. So imagine that literally only 100 people from India can come over to the United States. And if we're pulling families, all it takes is 7 to 8 families, and that's it. If we're talking families that have 5 or 6 children, that's it. We met our quota. Sorry, that's enough, right? And so what ended up happening is with the Luce Seller Act of 1946, there were privileged countries that got benefits over the others or priority over the others when it came to coming to the United States. So then we get to 1952, which was the McCarran-Walter Act. Now, this act removed the bar on Asian naturalization, meaning we're not going to sit here and limit what happens with people coming from the Asian population. We'll let y'all come in here. Sounds like a win, right? Right? Now we've lifted the bar and come on in and everybody get your citizenship? No. Why? Because now what they've done is when it came to Asians, they would be identified by race and not nationality when it came to getting naturalization. So if there was somebody who was of Korean descent, but was born and raised in Switzerland, when they would apply for citizenship in the United States, they couldn't apply as somebody from Switzerland. They had to apply as Korean. And that automatically went to that 100 tally count for Korea. So mind you, somebody who's never been to Seoul, Korea, and spent their whole life in the Swiss Alps, and they're applying, now they just took a slot out of somebody's possibility that lived in South Korea just because of what their race was, right? And so Truman even got to the point where he tried to override that one. It was like, okay, now damn, even this one's a little too racist for me. However, it was overruled because Congress overrode him and shut that down. In addition, when we're talking about that, remember, there's just that count of 100. Half of the immigrant visas that were allowed from that 100 had to go to specifically people who had an advanced education or a specialization skill. So automatically, if you're not a doctor, an engineer, a scientist, now you really only got 50 slots. You don't got 100. It's now down to 50. And then the rest of the 50, because you're like excited, like, okay, well, I'm not a doctor or something, but okay, it's 50. We can try. The rest was dedicated to the families of U.S. citizens or permanent residents, meaning if there was somebody who already lived in the United States and they want to get their relative over here from Korea, they took priority over you who may have never had any kind of ties to America. You're just trying to get there on your own. So if you born and raised in Korea, your whole family's still in Korea, and you're trying to get that naturalization and you're trying to get the citizenship, you got to wait in line behind whoever's already in the United States trying to get the rest of their family here, right? So not a win. Then we get to 1965, the Hart-Celler Act, which really is interesting, right? Now, this is when they removed the national origins quota, which made everything race neutral. And you know how we got there? Because again, at this point, this is the Immigration Act of 1965, which is the reason why many people are here today, right? I'm going to read this quote. By outlawing racial discrimination in public life, activists established a new national precedent of equality. Lawmakers used the same moral and legal framework from the Civil Rights Act to draft the Immigration and Nationality Act, which explicitly forbade discrimination in issuing visas based on race, sex, or nationality. They literally used the language and what was learned from the Civil Rights Act and what ended up happening with the Civil Rights Movement to create and draft the legislation of what would become the Immigration Act of 1965. You are literally here, Vivek, by default. And the fault is the bloodshed, abuse, and attacks Black people had to deal with in order to gain the civil rights that eventually benefited everyone, not just Black folks. And so for you to still sit here and move like the oppressor that you think that you are, and think that you are exempt from this very policy, when we just went down a list of at least 12 different laws where they were trying to stop you from coming over here. And then you got over here and still signed up to be white instead of signed up to be a decent person and make sure everybody was good. Interesting to me, right? Like I said, if you lose Ohio, just know I'm going to be right here ready. We are going to have a time, okay? It's always a token. And there's one in every community, right? Prime example, let me pull this clown up. Michigan, I need y'all to act like y'all got some sense when it comes to this gubernatorial election, right? John James. Now, John James, he's running for governor of Michigan, and he already stated that if he is elected, he is going to remove any woke policy if elected governor, right? They love to get in these positions, and they do any and every. Oh, this is the wife, by the way. You know, I had to Google what the wife looked like, because they always got a certain look. Like I always say, whenever they change their speaking voice to try to talk softer and they don't have facial hair, I'll always be questioning. And then he kind of got an okay lineup, because usually it's a jacked up lineup, no facial hair, and they kind of change their voice a little bit and appear to be less threatening. And then normally them be the ones that you can't trust when they run for office. I'm just saying. But anyway, there's always the ones who are going to break their necks to try to be, accepted by the masses in order to get into the door. And I've always said, I don't want any candidates that run on white grievance, because that means Black folks are always going to be collateral, even if the candidate is Black. So Michigan, act like y'all got some sense. Anyway, I'm going to pause there because we've had a whole lot going on. And then I'm going to get to the second half of this. So let me read some comments here, and then we're going to keep it moving. A hot freaking mess. I'm not going to be able to get to every comment because this segment alone was an hour. So, man. All right, let's see what we got here. I'm going to just start to do a few here. Christy said, white Christian males be cooking him up on their podcast all day long, yet he only has smoke for Black folks, not thinking about him and minding our own business. And that's interesting, because again, he will sit there and get disrespected by the very collective he's trying to appease, and they play in that man's face all the time. And because he knows that if he shakes the table or does too much, they will kind of push him off permanently. He has to walk the eggshells and play the game, right? He moves just like Bobby Jindal from Louisiana. Same nonsense. Let's see. Exactly. They get real quiet about those legacy students at these Ivy League schools. Every time. I'm gonna just keep scrolling because I got to get to the bottom. So I'm sorry that I'm skipping some of you guys. So much talk about welfare, but can we confront the wages of the employer or the employers like Walmart rumored to tell workers to apply for welfare when onboarding, or the fact that Walmart takes, or I don't know if they still do this anymore, but used to take insurance policies out on employees, and then when the employee dies, Walmart gets a check, right? I remember seeing that in the what documentary was that? I can't think of the name of the documentary, but yeah, nonsense. All right, well, keep it going. Let's see. Exactly. They drag his family online, but he only talks about Black folks. So embarrassing. Of course, every time we are always going to be the default, right? Let's see. Exactly. Linda Lawson said Bobby Jindal tried this mess, right? Their grievance is this is Billy Flood. Their grievance is your existence. Amen. This is why we cannot compromise or meet between the aisles with people who want to annihilate us. And that's how I've been moving. I'm not trying to be friends with everybody. I can be cordial, I can be friendly, but when it comes to my livelihood, I'm not trying to be in every space. I'm not trying to be in every room. I don't got to be friends with everybody. You ain't got to like me. You just stay out of my way, right? And I'm fine with that. I can coexist. You do whatever you do over there. Just don't bring that nonsense to me or to my community. Like I'm fine with that. There's some people who are still trying to create this happy utopia where we're all going to be standing together and singing Hands Across America. It's not happening. You see the way that the country's moving. As soon as white folks were given permission to be who they really wanted to be once Trump got reelected, look how they started moving collectively. And folks are still trying to reach across the aisle, right? Tokens get spent, exactly. Somebody said these are the stories that are hidden from people today, including more of the recent immigrant populations. Like it's when you really look into the history of the United States, they literally hated everybody except for white folk, and even then they were turning on their own. Like, because remember, there were certain periods in time, especially in places like New York, where 3 of the 4 residents in the schools, like when you talk about a classroom, 3 to 4 kids were immigrants, mind you, European immigrants. But the white folks that were already here for a few generations felt some kind of way because, again, you got European immigrants that are still learning English and everything else like that. When I tell you the hatred that exists in this country, like they hated everybody. And so to watch somebody like Vivek thinking he's the exception because he can talk a good game, like, sir, please, please. Okay. Now, speaking of merit, because again, you know, this is one of the things that somebody like Vivek loves to run on, the merit. He really has convinced himself that he has earned everything, and the rest of it, people like me, I'm only wherever I'm at because of affirmative action, because I grew up thinking that I couldn't do anything without help. The fact that he really speaks in absolutes for a whole population of 50 million people. Interesting. But anyway, let's talk about DEI hires, since we got so much DEI going on around here. Where's that image I was looking at? I'm so pissed because all of my stuff is all out of whack because, yeah, I ran out of time when I was trying to get on here and do the live. Have we seen your latest senator, right? You have Darlene Graham Norton. She is the sister of Lindsey Graham, and she has already been sworn in as a senator. They weren't playing no games. You have somebody who has no experience in politics and becomes a senator overnight. But let a black person run for something, especially statewide. They got to cure 12 different types of cancer to be qualified, and they better not laugh in a way that's annoying, or they won't be qualified. Interesting. Like, they swore her in quick. They weren't playing no games, right? Kind of goes back to everything we saw with the Trump cabinet, how you got a lot of folks who were just unqualified that are now in these positions. Interesting. Anyway, now I want to shift gears here because we're going to still talk about the merit disciples. We got the merit brigade. So we got Lindsey Graham's sister. And now let's get to RFK, because, again, this is the guy that's in charge of Health and Human Services. And, again, we now know that there's a whole outbreak that has been waiting for us, that has been laying people out. So let me pull that up. Hopefully none of you guys have had to deal with it, because I know that would suck to have diarrhea for weeks at a time. All right, let's go to the article. RFK's CDC cut back on parasite monitoring, then an outbreak kicked in. Okay, now this thing, okay, USA, get it together. All right, they got too many ads on here. God dang it, no. All right. An outbreak of explosive diarrhea causing parasite is picking up steam across the United States as thousands of residents have reported falling ill. Cyclosporiasis, or the disease caused by the parasite Cyclospora, has been identified in more than 1,600 confirmed cases. We're now up to 2,600 cases. This article is a few days old, with 5,100 others being investigated. According to the updated data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on July 13th, more than 100 people have been hospitalized and cases have been confirmed in 34 states. The agency, headquartered and operated out of Atlanta, noted that they are aware of other cases and are working with state health agencies for updated case numbers. The CDC has been unable to confirm a specific source of the parasitic infection, which is known to be found on fresh produce and in water in tropical regions. I'm just going to call this CJ because I'm not going to be fighting for my life trying to say this all day. CJ cases tend to spike in the summer months, the CDC says, between May and August. But this time, health officials inside the agency and across the country are tackling the outbreak with fewer staff and resources. What has changed inside the CDC? Well, Trump administration cuts back on parasite monitoring. CJ was one of multiple parasites that were removed from a mandatory reporting list last summer under the Trump administration. Historically, the CDC's Foodborne Disease Active Surveillance Network, or FoodNet, tracked cases of food poisoning, referring to a number of pathogens that can cause gastrointestinal and other symptoms. The program began in the late 1990s and worked with state health departments and Food and Drug Administrations and the USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service to conduct testing of food products across the country, hopefully catching parasites before they become larger outbreaks. Last year, however, the program was significantly cut back as a part of Secretary Robert F. Kennedy's changes to the agency. required monitoring was cut down from 8 pathogens to just 2, and the other 6 pathogens were made optional, including Cyclospora. Salmonella and STEC remain the only required pathogens for monitoring. Narrowing FoodNet's reporting requirements is in part because the surveillance landscape has changed since the collaboration began in 1995. A note on CDC's website reads, changes to the reporting requirements and associated activities allow FoodNet to prioritize core activities while maintaining both the infrastructure and quality FoodNet represents. FoodNet works closely with laboratories in Colorado, Connecticut, Georgia, Maryland, Minnesota, New Mexico, Oregon, Tennessee, and select counties in California and New York. Michigan is not on the list, but currently experiencing the highest case numbers of CJ. The monitoring will not prevent any infection from taking place, but it can catch an outbreak in the early days, identifying a cause preventing many people from ever getting sick. I'm going to stop there because I got the points that I need to make. Okay, so what's also been very interesting in this is that we at this point understand that there's a company named Taylor Farms where it is believed that the outbreak has come from their products. Taco Bell shook the table and was like, hey, we're pulling the Taylor Farms shredded lettuce from our menu because it's looking like this is something that is linked to Taylor Farms. And then it's interesting because what ended up happening is you watched the federal government go after Taco Bell and paint Taco Bell to be the origin of this big giant parasite. So let's can we talk some imaging here? First, let's talk about Taylor Farms. All right, let's pull up the CEO. All right. Here's our Taylor Farms CEO, right? This is Bruce Taylor. Now, Taylor Farms in June of 2025 donated $1 million to the MAGA Inc. Trump Super PAC. That was June of 2025, right? And then in March of 2025, the FDA announced a 30-month delay in the food traceability rule. Now, this was an initial program that could track contaminated food within hours versus days, but they had to cut the budget. Why did they have to cut the budget? Because there was something created called DOGE. Vivek, remember Vivek? Vivek and Elon were going to come together and create the Department of Government Efficiency. DOGE came out and said, no, we got to cut some of this stuff down, so on and so forth, right? To the point where you have that happening, and then you get RFK in there who also wants to cut some more things and get rid of everything at the CDC and all these regulations. So we have that going on. So that is who technically is the face of Taylor Farms. But instead, they decided that Taco Bell would be the culprit. So rather than addressing the fact that there's budget cuts when it comes to monitoring everything and addressing the fact that you have this big giant CEO of a giant food distribution company that has donated to the Trump campaign and everything else like that, where they're clearly responsible for what's happening, but they're not going to blame them. They're going to blame Taco Bell. So then you look at, well, who's the CEO of Taco Bell? Right? Sean Tresvant. Let's blame the black guy. Let's blame the guy whose franchise noticed that something was off and said, let's act immediately and pull this shredded lettuce that probably has a contamination. And rather than going after the company that provides the shredded lettuce, we'll go after Taco Bell. They said, we're going to go after the black guy. Let's do that. Interesting. They play in everybody's face. We literally have the issue that we have now because of cuts, because of DOGE and because of RFK, where they cut back on monitoring, they cut back on regulation. There's a 30-month delay in an entire program, and something like Taylor Farms benefits from that 30-month delay, where until we get to July of 2028, that program where we talk about, what's the name of the program again? Let me pull it up. The food traceability rule that the FDA had announced, this 30-month pushback, this benefits something like a Taylor Farms, because now, at least until July 2028, they kind of get their way. This is what happens when you donate to the people who are in charge. They move mountains for you, right? They'll do you a few little favors here and there, right? Anyway, let's keep it going with the Merit crew, right? Let's get to Pete Hegseth, right? Well, first I want to go to this clip here because, again, just like I said, where's that one I want? Oh, yeah. Interesting. Let's go to this one here. Remember how I said the president has this weird obsession with the flyovers? It's like he saw Top Gun and just can't get enough. So I saw this clip of the Navy Blue Angels who are doing flyovers, but I want you to take note of just how close these flyovers are to the general populations. First, I just got to get the video open first. Let's do that. All right, here we go. Oh, I gotta share the screen. Just kidding. All right. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing. First of all, that's not even the main piece I want to show. It just goes to show how stupid these people are, because we literally have turned into a place where people in charge of our military, which is currently getting its hand behind handed to them across the water right now, um, our military is in the hands of people who do not think, who have no common sense, who think that the military is just like their plaything or their play toy, where you can threaten all these wars and start stuff across the water, and you can keep utilizing the Air Force and the Navy and everybody else to go and entertain, which is why you keep having these flyovers and everything else like that. But now we're at the point where you're having flyovers where you have these $billion jets flying 10 feet off the ground. Like, God forbid there's an incident and one of those planes just hits everybody and you got 70 body parts sprayed around, right? That's one piece of the pie. But, I want to go deeper because there's something that has been announced by Hegseth that is very important. So let me pull up that clip, right? Pete, where are you with your foolery? Dang it, Pete, where are you, sir? Oh, yeah. Let's get our Secretary of War to give us a very important announcement, right? Because he loves the troops. Let's share that. All right. I don't know if we're going to sit through 2 minutes of this because my brain cells can't take this much, but we'll get through as much as we can.
At the Department of War, we have the most elite warriors on the face of the earth. Every single day, you are pushed to your absolute physical and mental limits to master the profession of arms. We demand your all, and you give it. But while we invest heavily in our weapon systems, platforms, and gear, our most decisive tactical advantage will always be the individual warfighter. We have a sacred duty to maintain that advantage, which is why we must constantly look for new ways to optimize your performance, your resilience, and your long-term health. And to meet that commitment today, I'm authorizing a new screening program for testosterone deficiency for our service members, ensuring you have the right testosterone levels to operate at your absolute best. Because it's well-established science that as we age, testosterone levels often naturally drop. Under the supervision of our world-class medical professionals, warfighters age 30 and older are going to be tested annually as part of their periodic health assessment. It's a health assessment that happens every year. We're just adding this test. Those under 30 can voluntarily choose to get the test as well. If treatment is recommended, it's entirely your choice to receive testosterone replacement therapy.
All right, I'm going to stop
this
there.
Initiative. It's not about artificial.
All right, so your boy Pete Hegseth, who again gets a hard on with the idea of strength all the time, has decided that, one, they're just seeing too much weakness in our military. So what they're going to do is they've decided that they're going to start giving people testosterone injections if they test where the testosterone is a little too low. Now, again, this is voluntary, but we're now getting into the space where we're really starting to move like the Nazis, because, again, this is something they were doing in Germany way back when. But, again, what I find interesting is this, what ends up happening in the event that you end up getting too much testosterone, you have an enzyme called aromatase that actually turns that testosterone into estrogen. So this will be very interesting to watch. But, again, folks that end up getting too much testosterone or get a whole lot, you're going to start seeing what? They get severe acne, they get oily skin, irritability, and mood swings. I can imagine how many people are going to start going and beating on their wives after getting these injections, right? Aggressive risk-taking behavior, reduced sperm count, shrunken testicles. Some folks are already mad to begin with. Let the stuff shrink, they're going to be even madder, right? Overproduction of red blood cells, which leads to thicker blood, which can also increase the likelihood of a stroke or a heart attack. My question is, why are we treating the military like a bunch of guinea pigs? Like, you know what I mean? Like, one, you see that they've had to raise the enlistment age because people aren't enlisting. That's why they're like, you're starting to get an older military. But again, somebody like a Pete Hegseth has this weird obsession with the idea of strength. But mind you, he ain't the most physical person. You know, I always got clips ready. Let's look at your boy and his workout ethics. So, you know, he loves to join the troops and then work out with them. Let's get that clip going. Let's see who the example is of the person trying to tell you that you're too weak to be in the military and you need to take some testosterone or take whatever you take. Where's that clip? Let's hit the play button. Yes. All right. Look at him. Now, he's already out of breath. You ain't doing nothing but jumping on the box. But actually, we're about to dissect this. Let me backtrack. Let's look at the knees, people. Barely doing it. Fighting for dying. I'm gonna go back to that one more time. Bend the knees. Bend the knee. Jump. He is fighting for his life to do this. And he probably only had to do this 10 times. Over here, look at over here fighting for his life. Let me go back to the other part. Show that again. Dying. About to die here. All right? Fighting for his life. But let him tell you, he's the strongest one on the planet. Horrible form. Horrible form. Lift. He's not even doing the full lift, people. Lift up. Look at him and look at him. Let me go back. Look at him and look at him. Up. Half done. What are we doing here? This man is about to die. Horrible posture. Horrible form. I know he's going to feel that in the morning. Keep going. Oh, this is my favorite part here. I don't know what is going on here. But you know how everybody, you know, when you go to like your kid's football game, there's that one kid on the team that clearly doesn't want to be there and probably would do a lot better in theater or something else that's more their speed. That's what I'm getting here. Oh, like this is how I used to look at football practice. No, I'm kidding. So like, what are we doing here, right? What are we doing? What's going on? Anyway, leave it to him. He knows what's best for our military, right? So meanwhile, while you got all this shenanigans going on because you're so busy worried about what's going on with the hormones of our military troops, and they just said F the women. They just said F the women, period. It's just about men and strength, even calling them warriors. Like he has an obsession with death and us going and killing people. Even the fact that they changed it from the Department of Defense to Department of War, it sounds like a term where you're trying to purposely start something, where you want something to happen. So now we fast forward and look what's happening in Iran, right? Things have escalated. Now, a few weeks ago, it was ceasefire and Orange, man, we won the war and we got this. And here we are again, right back. Iran is over there blowing up them bases. And I feel so bad for the troops that are stuck out there in a space where they're not even protected, right? Where you have all these bases that are attacked. And the reality is we are likely never going to have the bases that we had in that region again when this is all said and done, right? And if I was one of those countries, I would never let the United States back in because the United States promised to protect all these countries where we built bases. And every last one of these countries are getting blown up and bombed. And it's because of something that the United States and Israel started, something that did not even need to take place. And every single time there's been an opportunity to come into the middle and come up with an agreement, what ends up happening? Orange man gets on his soapbox and does something irrational, or Israel ignores whatever's in the ceasefire and starts going after Lebanon or going after somebody else. And before you know it, we're right back to where we are. Foolishness. You got a lot of stupid people in charge. But again, let Vivek tell it. These are the top merited folks. The whole Trump cabinet, right? RFK, Pete Hegseth, Carolyn Levitt, all of these people, these are the top notch of the top notch. This is why when we talk about something like affirmative action, this is the result of what happens when you didn't check the entire talent pool. You just took people by default because they were white. And here we are. You got a Fox News contributor in charge of the military who's living out his childhood dream that he had when he used to play with his toy soldiers as a kid. Now he's doing it with real people's lives. You got a sister to a dead senator that has never been in politics, who's now going to be a senator making decisions for you and I. Now, the one thing I will say is that, you know, that term is almost up and somebody still has to run and will be put into office by January. So I don't know if she's going to really run for that, but we'll see what happens with that, right? You got all these agencies and all these people who don't know what they're doing that are in charge. A mess. Let me read a few comments here. It's stupid. Stupid. He said that look, now the troops are getting gender affirming care. All right. You hated other groups of people that get it, but okay, interesting. Somebody said this dude can't even bench press. Look at the sloppy drunk. Exactly. Roid rage in the military. And see, this is what happens when you have people who think that they can just utilize force to get everything they want. This is why the U.S. is getting their butts kicked in Iran right now. Iran has strategy. Iran has figured this out. Iran knows every move that the United States is going to pull, especially when you got an idiot like Trump in charge. Iran be laughing at us. Yeah, their stuff is getting blown up, but their stuff get blown up all the time. So they don't care. They'll rebuild it. The United States, we're moving in a space where we just think we can keep bombing everything and that will fix it. Like when we're talking to Strait of Hormuz, you can bomb all you want, but if nothing can get through that strait and it affects everybody, there ain't that much blowing up stuff in the world. At some point, the United States is going to have to bend the knee, and they don't want to because it means that they have to admit defeat. And it sucks that we had to utilize our troops in this nonsense, right? You literally have sent people out there to risk their lives because Orange Man decided to have an inflated ego because he's still pissed that Obama, was able to have the Iran deal, and we had a little bit of peace for a decade, right? He couldn't stand that Obama was able to do that. So let me go and escalate a war, right? Let me go ahead and be Netanyahu's guinea pig, because Netanyahu has tried with every president since Bush to try and get somebody to go and attack Iran. And every other president, even Bush, had the common sense to say, no, I'm good on that. Man, we're not doing that. But here comes Orange Man ready, excited. Here we are. Foolery. Starsky 051 said hormones fluctuate. Exactly. And it all comes, especially when it comes with age, your body's going to go through different stages. There's a reason why your testosterone levels go down, because you don't need them in the same capacity that you did in your 20s when you're pushing 40, 50. Like there's going to be different things in your body that changes. So the idea of thinking, let's just inject them with some more, keep them strong, thinking this is a steroid. This is not Rocky 4. Okay. This ain't Rocky 4 with the, if he dies, he dies. Like, be for real. Bunch of idiots. Oh yeah, and get man boobs too. That sucks. Let's see. I should have found a clip of him doing that push-up. If I can find that clip, I'm gonna find it another time because we got other topics. If you see that clip of him doing that push-up with that bad form, I said, really interesting. Regina said, how voluntary is voluntary in Hegseth's military? Exactly, because y'all done kicked everybody out. I don't see a whole lot of voluntary anything. They're going to force them to do whatever they want people to do. In the words of Laree Daniel Ferris, I love her show. Pete, his own mama said he's trash Hegseth, needs to be removed from this post ASAP. He's a sick white boy. Exactly. We got the dumbest, most dangerous people in charge, all jokes aside. That's a horrible combination. Like, this shit is a movie. Like, if this were a movie, this would be one of the most entertaining, maybe not a movie, like a TV series. This would be one of the most entertaining TV shows of all time. But the sad reality is this is life. This is where we live. It's just like, how? Well, we know how, we know who, and we know why, but dang. Y'all really just had to double down on the foolery and put this nonsense into power, huh? Okay. Anyway, I want to go to this clip that I saw, which is very interesting, by the way. You better be happy this man's alive. Let's shift to this before I get to some heavier topics again. Have we seen this clip of the Bison, right? I'm 38. I literally just was able to sleep normal again last night because I had a crick in my neck from like 4 days ago. Right? Wait, I'm not 38. I'm 37. Shit, I'm aging myself up. I'm sorry. It's not my birthday yet. Anyway, yeah, I had a crick in my neck that lasted for like 4 days. So I can imagine I gotta play that clip one last time. I can imagine a bison going, right? And you get the horn to the back, tossed in the air. He's in the air at least about 7-8 feet. He lands in the tree, hits the ground. And then the bison just stands over him like, and what? He is going to feel that for the rest of his life. right? I need these folks to start realizing, like, and you know, I personally feel like animals be communicating. Like, I feel like that bison remembers how white folks moved around them. That bison remembers that way back when in the 1800s they killed 40. The white Americans killed 40 million bison, right, to try to starve the Native Americans out. And by 1889, there were only 1,000 left. If you don't think them bison communicate generationally, like when you see them attack, right, the enemy, hell, my guard would be up too if I was a bison. I would have took out everybody, even the truck, just because the truck was white. Okay, crazy. Somebody asked me about Orange Man's speech. I did not watch because he don't get that much of my attention. But you know, Orange Man recently had a speech on Thursday that he announced, I think on Monday or Tuesday, where he was going to talk again about voter fraud and all the other things that are there. And you want to know what I really think this was rooted in? I think this is rooted in the fact that, oh, let me give some more context. He does the speech. He talks about, you know, the same lies. He's there. He's also mad because most of the networks chose not to air it, except for CBS, which ended up pulling away. Like ABC said, we're not showing it. NBC said we're not showing it. And it's because they're like, listen, Thursday night is our prime time hour. We get our advertising dollars by showing these primetime shows that people want to watch. We can't keep pulling away every time you want to have a speech and then we lose money and everything else like that. So no, we're not going to show it. So that pissed off Trump. During his speech, he started talking about why he needs to revoke ABC's broadcasting license, so on and so forth. And anyway, he goes on this thing about all the fraud in the elections. And, you know, he starts talking about how, especially Georgia, Ossoff and Warnock, this stuff may not be credible. And really what I think that's rooted in, I think it's rooted in the fact that Ralph Warnock was able to, because, you know, he was a sponsor of that housing bill, the very bill that we talked about on the last live that Trump did not want to sign because he was saying, I'm not signing anything until you guys push the SAVE Act. Unfortunately, Congress had the votes. And it was a veto-proof vote, which meant that the president couldn't veto it. And whether or not he chose to, well, he could have vetoed it, but he would have lost, and they would have just went back and voted and still put it through. But because this was a bill that he chose not to sign, it's like if you don't sign it, it still becomes law after 10 days. So he made his whole protest post and was like, I'm just not going to sign it. It has now become law. So now I feel like this is his way of trying to get back at Warnock. Because again, Warnock was the senator elected in the state of Georgia, which in 2020, Georgia is one of the reasons why we ended up getting Joe Biden. And Orange Man is still convinced that Georgia was stolen. And what I always find funny is, you mean to tell me Trump wins in 2016 when Democrats are in charge. Trump wins in 2024 when Democrats are in charge. Trump loses in 2020 when he and his party are in charge. So you mean to tell me that under your watch, the election was stolen? Okay, and my thing is, okay, if they stole the 2020 election, why wouldn't they steal the 2024 election? That would have been the one to steal. That's why I'm always like, it's a bunch of nonsense. Just out here saying anything. And then we have also seen that he's also, you know, fired all those people from the Election Assistance Commission, right? Where, again, that agency is supposed to be there to make sure that elections are fair, that the states have the right resources, that everything is there to ensure that there is a smooth election. And we keep watching this man chip away at all elements of election integrity every single time. You keep seeing him do it. He is still fighting and clawing to try to push this SAVE Act because he knows that if he loses in November as far as the midterms, even if he just loses one chamber of Congress, if he just loses the House, he is now powerless. And in the event that he also loses the Senate, he knows that he's impeached ASAP, right? So he's going to keep throwing everything at the wall to go and slow all this stuff down. It's funny, when we did the example of, you remember we had the map with the voter fraud and we went state by state. What's so funny about that map is from the Heritage Foundation, one of them very right-wing Donald Trump loving groups. And the purpose of that map was to showcase all of the fraud that existed. But then when you look at the map, there's really not a lot of, a few dozen in one state, a few dozen in the other. It backfired. And now you have people literally using that as a resource to combat the narrative that there's all this voter fraud. There's not. The average American is not going to put their livelihood at risk to go and illegally vote. Like, again, I don't know why they keep painting this picture as if there's folks like gangs getting together like, all right, y'all, what are we about to do? We're going to go and vote twice, right? We live in a country where you can't even get people to show up to vote, right? We got a low voter turnout in this country. Why do you think millions of people are going to go and do election fraud when we don't even got enough people to vote to begin with, right? Silly, stupid. Somebody was asking me this picture about Mitch. Where's Mitch? Did I get a picture of that man here? Oh, I did. Hold on. All right, Mitch, where you at? I'm late to the party with this one too, but I'm still gonna talk about it. All right, so we were on watch on the last live, and now we're back at it again, right? So this statement came out. He said, oh, he had a fall. They've been in rehab and so on and so forth and blah, 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 blah. My thing is, all right, if it's just that, how come you weren't in the last Senate session from the other day? Not even a phone call, not even anything. A lot of people feel like this is altered. I don't think it's altered. I just think it's an old picture. And it looked like he might have did a little Botox or something. Because listen, this is a little bit tighter than usual because he was kind of sagging in the face right now. Look, the wife might have got some too. They went to the same doctor, got a little juice. All right, okay, I see. Yeah, Mitch, we still have not technically really heard from since June 14th, minus that random statement. But I'm going to say this for all those people who claim that they talked to him on the phone. If it comes out that this man is actually dead, interesting, right? Now, what a lot of people think is actually happening is a lot of people think that they're going to wait until August 4th to announce that this man has died. And it's because Kentucky law dictates that a special election must be held before August 4th if there's an empty Senate seat. However, if the vacancy occurs after August 4th, then the seat is to remain vacant without a special election until the regular November election. And so what does that mean? That means in the event that this man is actually dead and they're trying to keep it a secret, it's because they know that if they can just last until August 4th, they don't have to have a special election to fill this seat. Because a special election just means that temporarily there's a possibility that somebody else from the opposing party may come into power for that handful of months before January. And so that's what that's about. So we'll see where this goes. I still don't think Mitch is with us anymore. We'll see. So we're still on Mitch watch, but we shall see. Let me read a few more comments, then I'm going to get to the last two stories. All right. Somebody said, read that Lindsey's sister went to an HBCU. Yeah, she certainly did in South Carolina. Not sure if that helped or if that will have any kind of impact on how she moves politically. I don't really know her politics like that, but we'll see. But again, Clarence Thomas had a picture of Malcolm X on his wall, and we saw how he turned out. So you never know. Nene64 said, our soldiers are dying for a foreign country. Yes, they're literally dying because Israel don't know how to act. Right. Which this is interesting, too. We saw that the last vote where, they were voting to cut funding to Israel. You saw that a lot of people in the Democratic Party are finally like, we're done with Israel. Y'all just doing too much. It's interesting to see what will happen and where the pendulum is starting to swing, because both parties have always been kind of hogtied to Israel for decades. And I think people are finally seeing like Netanyahu is a lunatic. And this is not even about even the people of Israel either. This is Netanyahu and his ego and his own personal strife that he has with the world, because, again, he wants to expand and do all these different things, which means that some of these countries have to not exist in order for his plan to come into fruition. And that's what he's acting on. That's why all this stuff is kicking off, and the United States was fool enough to jump on board with it. We'll see what happens. Somebody said, and we're now in a worse position. We are. Like, we literally, and it's funny because you watch the narrative of why we jumped into that war keep shifting. First, it was nuclear weapons. Then it was ballistic missiles. And now it's all, then it was the people of Iran needed to be free from the leadership. And now, and that's like, well, hell, people in America need to be free from the leadership we got right now. And then it turned into, okay, well, damn, they closed the Strait of Hormuz. Well, we need them to open the Strait of Hormuz. So now we're in a war to get back to where we were before the war started, when in reality, we didn't have to jump in it at all. Silly. Stupid. Not I said Red Bull gives you wings with this Bison. Y'all are silly. Okay. Somebody said, why not hop on the car? Oh, with the video. Let me go back to the video. I didn't think about that. Let's go back. I'm sorry I keep going to this video. It made my day because folks be thinking they are exempt with these wild animals. Okay, let's see. And what's she doing? She said she should be running too. She acting like he won't come over there, right? And who's filming? Why is the person that's filming not running too? Right? This Bison is knocking a whole tree over right there. Look, the whole tree getting knocked over. He's hiding, running with these suspenders on. My door is locked. I'm sorry. You on your own. Because I don't need that Bison running a dick in my car. Because what are you doing? I'm going to just ride and mind my bit. Oh, damn. Well, okay. Well, there's that. Like, if anything, I ain't gonna lie. If I was this white man, I'm a freeze frame. I would have ran and jumped on top of this person's car. They would have just had to fight me and get my insurance because I'm either on top of this car or I'm climbing one of these trees. I don't know if he is in a physical capacity to climb a tree at this stage in life, but I mean, that was a great question, by the way. So I don't know if they would have been able to get in the car. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like they would have had time, or they would have had to hop in that truck from jump. But I don't think the person in the white truck knew who they were. And at that time, it doesn't look like the danger was sensed yet. Says, got the rapper lady with the pink wig posted about it on her socials too. What is that about? The voter fraud thing? I don't pay attention to Nikki. Whatever she got going, she got some nonsense going. I know his back hurt. I know he got icy hot everything. Oof, I can feel that. That's a hard way. That was a hard come down. I know there was a crack or something hurt when he landed. Right? I know he in the hospital. I got to learn. I'll stop pissing these animals off. Remember them stories where we kept seeing the elephants that kept going and stumping out people? Like, y'all keep bothering these animals. Leave them alone. They are animals. All right, let's talk Jay-Z. Let me find this clip. Jigga Man. All right, Jay-Z. All right, let's get to my folder here. I gotta make sure I got the right version. The one I was trying to play wasn't playing right earlier.
I did sell out.
Okay. All right, let's go to this clip and then we're gonna talk. I'm a little late to the Jay-Z party as well, but it's fine. I'm still gonna talk about it because it's my channel. I can do what I want. All right, here we go.
They say I sold out. Yeah, I did sell out. 3 nights. I sold Yankee Stadium and I'm out. I'm a target. Aim, don't miss that target. No exclusive, they only doing with Apple and Walmart. You shop it at Amazon or you boycott it. You post it on Instagram, that's better, boy. Stop it. Y'all know Google owns YouTube. You picking and choosing a politicking as usual. They need to keep the narrative. This is embarrassing. They run out of characters, had to bring back up Cap again. Buddy took a check. I ain't even mad at him. But along with that check, the sign that I'm disparaging. I'm the one they can't control. Y'all better be glad as him. I'm the one they can't control. You better be glad as him. Have to build you back in the community. That's just good math for him. I'm listening to Twitter activists. They type and I laugh at them. It's really no comparison. I check my stats again. I'm bringing folks home to their family. Laws get passed to him. You can like it or not. He don't do no ass kissing. Ex-drug dealer. You might not like the packaging, but my presence is the president. My gift is rapping. Oh, shit.
Okay. All right. So for some context, Jay-Z had signed an exclusive deal with Target to carry the 30th anniversary edition of his Reasonable Doubt album. And it drew some backlash because a lot of people felt like, Jay, you know that a lot of people in the Black community are boycotting Target. Target is one of the companies that they feel some kind of way about. So why would you work with Target exclusively? Again, exclusively. This is not going to be at the other stores, but just Target exclusively to do this project when you know that for a lot of folks, Target is a slippery slope. A lot of folks ain't feeling it, right? And it creates some backlash. So this clip is him responding to a lot of the backlash that he got. So first, excuse me, sorry. Gas here, sorry. I had ginger ale earlier. Let me start with Target. Now, as far as Target, we are currently in the era where Black people are literally combating their own government that's actively working against them, right? And we don't have the full support of our courts, our government, our law, even policy, because literally it's all being utilized and rewritten to work against us to the point where Black people collectively are on their own in this country when it comes to civil rights, when it comes to liberties, when it comes to just having a peaceful state of mind. All we got is each other right now. Nobody is in our corner. Even for all these folks who who even some of these politicians who run, we've literally lost voting rights, and all these politicians are silent, including some of the ones that people love to praise and paint as the savior for the progressive America. Some of them same ones that people put on a high horse have said nothing about voting rights being gutted. Silent, right? So we have all these things that are taking place that affect us. And so for a lot of Black folks, one of the things that Black folks feel that they always can do is boycott. Because some people always say, well, Black folks got $2 trillion or something, and that's what they can do. But the reality is, when we're talking about that $2 trillion, that's not play money. That's not money for the casino. That's not money to go to Bermuda. That's mortgages. That's debt. That's student loan debt. That's taking care of grandma. That's taking care of your mama. That's taking care of all this stuff. It's just $2 trillion in general, but it's not all play money. That incorporates housing, food, gas, necessities, medical bills, everything else. So the one thing that Black folks have often felt is we can always at least boycott where we can get our voice to be heard. And the object is, if you can boycott a company successfully enough where they start to suffer and feel the pain, it puts the message out there that, yeah, you come after us or you do something that's out of pocket, then we can make an example out of you. So with Target, the reason Target was one of the companies that was chosen was because Target at one point marketed themselves as an ally to Black America. We're the company that will move as the exception. We're the company that's going to help you get to where you want to get. We're going to embrace the Black businesses. We're going to embrace these programs and have these different initiatives. And we're going to make sure that some of your products and stuff can end up on our shelves, and not just in the Black section of the store, but literally amongst all the other products. We're going to do all that because we are all about building America and expanding and equity and all this great stuff. So then Orange Man gets into office. And on day one, he has his executive orders gutting all this DEI stuff. Now, here's the gotcha. That's for the federal government, not for private corporations, not for private companies. However, Target jumped on board right away and said, we're cutting all the diversity, equity, blah, 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 initiative. All that's done. Cut. They were never asked to do that. They were never threatened with it. They signed up for it first in line, couldn't wait. And Target wasn't the only company. There were tons and tons of companies that all ran and jumped on this wave right away. Didn't even think about it, right? And so that pissed off a lot of folks. And then you had a lot of organizers say, you know what, Target? Okay, we thought y'all were down with us, but Trump didn't even ask y'all to do anything, and y'all signed up, right? Okay, cool. Well, we're not going to shop here no more. And it becomes announced that, hey, there's a boycott. Black folks stop going to Target. It's not all of us, but it's enough of us to the point where it affects Target's, placements when it comes to like stocks and everything, right? You watch them lose billions of dollars over the last year, right? And so the thing that I think a lot of people felt was, again, y'all, Target as a company chose the Foolery and they weren't told to. They signed up for it. They volunteered. It's the same thing that I've been saying about white folks getting permission to finally be how they really want to be now that Orange Man is back in power for a second time. You watch so many people just lose their ish or become exactly who they really want to be because they feel protected by the current system that's in place. We've watched companies, again, gut their DEI programs. And again, DEI is such a new term that nobody was even using a few years ago. And it's now to the point where DEI just means everything that's not white. To the point where even when people are applying for jobs, you have companies that are afraid to hire you because you're Black, because they think that hiring you is some kind of violation of a DEI clause that's not supposed to be there anymore. That's where we're at right now, right? And so companies have literally been afraid to hire us. And so Target was the example. So when everybody, got on board, and mind you, it's funny because even on this channel, I was getting pushback. Some people are like, why Target? Why you didn't go after it? We'll get to that in a second. So anyway, I haven't been big on Jay-Z for a while. Like once Jay-Z did the My Presence is Charity line against Harry Belafonte, I was like, okay, all right. I'm not even going to be that mad about it, but I see how you move. Okay. And then, of course, everything with the NFL took place. We did a whole video dissecting that and the whole Inspired Change, where if you go and buy some T-shirts, the money from those T-shirts will go to community building. You got to pay for your own liberation. But don't worry, at least we'll get to pick the halftime performers, right? And the whole NFL thing. He was one of the main ones, kind of in the way a little bit with the whole we're past kneeling and so on and so forth, which is fine. But then my question became, well, what was next? And he never had the next. What I've noticed about Jay-Z is that Jay-Z will often insert himself into some of these struggles and paint himself to be a revolutionary, but doesn't ever do anything revolutionary. And again, I have no beef with entertainers being entertainers and getting their checks or being capitalists. That's what I expect for them to do. But when they go and try to be revolutionary and capitalist at the same time, and then somewhat criticize the demographics of people that are doing the groundwork, I got to look at you sideways. And my thing with Jay-Z is you can't get mad if people feel some kind of way that you partnered with Target, right? You have agency to do whatever you want. And the reality is you knew that Target was the one place Black folks felt some kind of way about in this moment. And it's not like you needed the money. You're a billionaire. You didn't need the money from the exclusive anything. It's not going to bring in that kind of money anyway, because people don't even buy CDs and vinyls like that to begin with. If you really wanted to make a statement, you could have exclusively not sold the product at Target and people would have rolled with you. But again, it is what it is. And so I think a lot of people, when we're talking optics, they remember Kaepernick, they remember the NFL, and they also remember the Barclays deal, right? And so people start to see a pattern. And so, yeah, you're going to start getting the whacking. So then when you respond, talk about $500 million back to the Black community, I'd like to know what that $500 million went to and where. Please, somebody give me the numbers. And I'm asking because I genuinely looked and searched. I couldn't find anything. I know he does some philanthropy and he got a few things going, but the numbers I found didn't go anywhere near $500 million. That's all I'm saying, right? And I'm wondering if what his definition of $500 million is, if that's just the revenue totals from some of the business endeavors that he's jumped into, and yet there's a handful of Black executives that get a check, and is that the definition of community? I just want some clarity. That's all. Okay. Now going back to the piece about Target, because a lot of folks are like, and this is where he says the thing too, like, okay, YouTube's owned by Google, Instagram owned by Meta, blah, 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 blah. His argument is, well, y'all talk about Target, but y'all still using all these other things. I think people misconstrue the idea that the idea was to make an example out of one company, because the reality is Black people don't have the infrastructure to boycott everything that's oppressive to us. If we boycott everything that's oppressive to us, we're not going to be able to do nothing but sit still on the floor. Can't go nowhere, because all these companies, McDonald's, Walmart, Amazon, company after company screws us over. And then you got to think about people that, even like Dollar General and stuff, there's issues with them too. You got to think about people who live in a rural town where they don't even have a grocery store, and their only grocery store is the Dollar General. We can't tell people to boycott Dollar General and they have no other way to feed themselves, right? And so the idea was, make an example out of one company. Let one company really feel the burn of a Black boycott and let that message spread. So then when another company's like, damn, y'all saw what they did to Target? Yeah, we might not want to piss them off. Like that was the notion, right? That's what it is. And who's to say that Target is going to be the only company? Maybe that's just the only focus right now, because people understand that Black people are already stretched thin. We're living in a country where, again, there are no federal protections. You have a government that's working against us. A lot of Black folks have lost their jobs, right? All these different things taking place. We can't go after everything all at the same time. We're going to burn ourselves out. So you got to take it in bits and pieces, get what it is that you can. And I love that Loree Daniel Favors brought this up, where she talked about the bus boycott. Where, again, if we go back to the early 1950s in Alabama, the whole town was racist. Everything was racist. It was racism when it came to the schools, when it came to the grocery stores, when it came to everything. And what did Black people get together and say? All right, let's make an example out of one thing. Let's just do the bus. Let's just do the bus system. We'll just start with the bus system, right? Because you're still going to need to get your groceries. You're still going to need to get all these different things. Some of you do work on the other side of town. You just can't 100% boycott white people, because, again, they are technically your livelihood for a lot of you, because a lot of you are domestic workers and you have no other way to take care of yourself. But you know what? We can make an example with the buses, and we'll make sure that everybody still has a way to get to work. We'll start a carpooling system. We'll do all these different things. But if we can make an example out of the bus, it'll do something. What does it do, right? This goes on for an extended period of time. The amount of revenue that the bus system loses starts to have an impact on the white economy. Bus routes start getting cut back. Bus driver hours start getting cut back. Bus driver pay and the corporations and the companies starts getting cut back, which starts to affect the white side of town, which now affects the commerce, which now affects the cash flow that some of these white families have. And it affects the entire revenue space of the entire city, because Black folks are not even taking certain routes to certain sides of town anymore. And in addition to that, the bus, you're riding these empty buses. So what ends up happening is you have this bus boycott that eventually the end result and the residual spread to other industries in the city. And that's what makes the city cave and be like, all right, we can't take no more. Can y'all please ride the bus? Please. Because they underestimated the power that Black folks had in that moment. And the reality is, had you tried to ask those Black folks to boycott everything in the city, it wouldn't have been as effective. And I think that's why sometimes it's okay to harp on like one company to make an example out of them. It doesn't give a pass to the others. It gives the others a warning that you could be next. Act like you got some sense, right? And the reality is, people have to remember there's still going to be services that people unfortunately have to use, because again, Black folks at the moment don't have the infrastructure to just boycott everything. And that's one of the conversations that we've been having on this channel once we got into the space of them cutting all this stuff from the federal government. What's one question I kept asking? I kept saying, as they cut all of these services and different things, as a collective, how do we get in a position to make sure that we never have to depend on these things again? You know, because let's just say that they do come back after Trump is out of office. Do we really want to put all of our eggs back into the buckets that were once there? Because look how easy it was to take them away. That's always been a conversation we've been having, at least since Orange Man got put back into office. And so it's fine sometimes to sacrifice one to make an example for others, right? That's how I've always been. And the thing is, even if he brings up this argument of, you know, bringing up all these other companies and, you know, well, y'all still boycott, y'all didn't boycott this, y'all didn't boycott that. Okay, here's my question. All right, if we boycott all these companies, you say as well, are you going to be providing the resources to make sure that everybody's still whole and able to function as they do this boycott while you still on your $1 billion? Like, are you going to ensure that you are a part of the movement? Because it seems like you only show up when you got something smart to say as a result of people trying to hold you accountable, right? You want to paint yourself to be this Black revolutionary, paint yourself into Black conversations. Culturally, there's a lot of celebrities that love to do it, right? They will sit there, they can speak the language of Black people, this, Black people, that, my president is Black, blah, 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 blah. But then on paper, they move different, right? When there's movements, they're nowhere to be found. And I felt some kind of way that he kind of threw a few shots at Colin Kaepernick, because my reality is this. Who paid for Nolan Wells' autopsy? Colin Kaepernick, right? Colin Kaepernick, listen, he got booted out of the NFL. He did take a Netflix deal. I ain't mad at him. Get your check. But what has he been doing this entire time? You watch him start entire nonprofits, do all kind of work. I think he's finally given up on the NFL dream. He's decided he will utilize what he can to at least build. And is that on him to do? In my personal opinion, he didn't have to. I feel like him just losing everything was more than enough. It painted the picture of what was needed and what the issues were. And then it was up to everybody else to get active. And he chose to still stay active. So look, if he decided to get him a check from Netflix and do a documentary, I ain't mad at him. That's your livelihood. But at least he's actively doing something. So to sit here and kind of throw a jab at Colin Kaepernick as well, interesting, especially when I read that report about Rock Nation and some of the narratives that were put out about Colin Kaepernick from Rock Nation to try to paint him to be a little bit more cuckoo, because you still at the time were trying to get the whole inspire change stuff together. It's just, for me, the issue that I've always had with Jay-Z is his ego is always bigger than the movement, right? He makes everything about him. Why can't you just do your show, right? It looks like it was a great time. Like, I saw the clips. Looks like it was an amazing time. People look like they really got to connect and everything. But you, for some reason, are so triggered by people saying, like, listen, you cool, but I don't feel that great about you doing this. And rather than finding a different way to address it, you ridicule and try to paint it as if Black folks who have literally brought Target to their knees over the last year are a bunch of fools because they didn't also go after Amazon and then also go after Meta. My question is, well, what did you do? Because you constantly break your neck to get into these white spaces. And I want to clear up one other thing, because somebody wanted to be a little smart aleck the other day. And they were saying something about, oh, you always going after Jay-Z, but Jay-Z got big money. People want to be like him. Let me explain something. Jay-Z is very wealthy. Very wealthy. I'd love to have that. I don't know if I want that much. I just want a lake house, and I want to be able to do what I want and fund whatever projects I have and be left alone. That's not really a billion, but if it comes cool. Anyway, Jay-Z has money, but Jay-Z has money that's play money for other people who are wealthier. Elon Musk is, and y'all know I can't stand Elon, but Elon does not look at Jay-Z as, oh my God, it's Jay-Z, because the money that Jay-Z has is Elon's play money. It's the same thing that happened with the NFL, and it's the same thing that happened when he had ownership, right? During the whole Barclays deal. We're like, oh, he's going to have ownership of the Nets, and he had what, 0.05% of a percent? Like, that's not enough to make any rules. That's not enough to determine who's going to get to make a trade. He doesn't even get to pick the trim on the jersey, right? But it's about marketing and painting the idea of, okay, Black excellence. He's moving on up. He's doing this for us. And then we saw what happened with Barclays. We saw how it gentrified that portion of Brooklyn. And we saw how it didn't really bring the kind of jobs that was marketed. Does it bring revenue to the area? Yes, because people now go there for games and everything. But a lot of that revenue goes to private equity and goes to private companies. It's not going to the residents of the neighborhood. And a lot of the jobs that were created are not jobs that are enough to sustain and even make first month's rent for a one-bedroom apartment because they're not getting paid enough. And again, I am not trying to criticize and tear the man down, because my thing is this. He ain't got to do nothing. If he wants to go be rich and rap and say F all y'all, he can. But when you step out there and paint yourself to be a revolutionary and paint yourself to be a pillar for the voices of Black community, this, that, and the third, then people are going to hold you to a higher expectation. So the audacity to go in front of a stadium full of people and say, y'all call me a sellout, but I sold out my show. What are we doing? Again, your ego has gotten bigger than the movement. You have made this about you and why you think you're so great, when, again, this is about a systemic issue. This is about a corporation that decided to turn its back on Black folks, and you decided to partner with them exclusively. So Black folks is the very same ones that you claim to stand behind and that you so much want to be the revolutionary figure for If they're going to feel some kind of way, they have their right to. So instead of validating how they feel, or at least acknowledging like, yeah, I hear y'all, but he said, F that, y'all stupid because y'all still using Instagram. My question to that, let's just pretend that I didn't have a 9-to-5 and that YouTube was my only bread and butter. If there was the call to boycott YouTube as well. We're going to boycott YouTube. We're going to boycott Meta, all that. So a lot of you message me a lot on Instagram. That's why it be taking me forever to get to y'all messages. I be feeling bad because some of y'all get responses 3 months later. But if I didn't have a regular 9-to-5 and YouTube was my primary source of income, and now we're boycotting. So we're not only boycotting YouTube, but now I also got to boycott Instagram, which is the other way I can market whatever else I have. The only other app I'm on, Threads is what? Threads is through Instagram, saying now you got to get off Threads, got to get off Facebook, and all these different things. My question would become, how would I pay my bills if I didn't have a 9-to-5 and I solely depended on YouTube and social media, right? Like the thing that I think he keeps forgetting is like, for a lot of people, this is why we say you can't stretch thin a demographic that doesn't have the infrastructure to boycott everything, because there's not enough of a pool of resources to make sure that everybody would be okay. Right? Like that's the reality. And so it was interesting. And it don't help, the crowd is going to be fans. So they're going to be like, oh, you speaking books. I'm like, oh, y'all, so easy. So easy. He didn't even say anything. I was like, wait, so now all of a sudden none of us knew that YouTube was owned by Google. None of us knew that the Meta owns Instagram and it's technically Facebook. What facts are you spitting that we didn't already know? He does that all the time. So again, once he got to the where past kneeling bit, I kind of looked at him sideways. Once he had the NFL deal, you can go back and find the video I did on it. I looked at him very, very, very sideways, because I personally also feel that because he ended up becoming the person that was in charge of the halftime shows, and as great as they have been, I think that kind of sealed the deal on the initial boycott that a lot of folks were trying to have with the NFL. Because, entertainment, folks got soul train syndrome. It don't take too much. You put a good remix out there and a good entertainer, it's over, right? And I feel like even with the halftime shows, that softened whatever movement was there. And who's still boycotting NFL? It's not a conversation anymore. People moved on, right? People got and enjoyed the halftime shows. And this is why sometimes entertainment sometimes can work against us collectively as well, because we have to sometimes decipher between being entertained or standing behind something that has meaning. And a lot of folks also have this thing where, well, if you ain't going to do it, I ain't going to do it. Well, I'm not. You okay? Well, then ain't none of us going to do it. All right. Well, what time we going to the show? Right? Unfortunately, that's where it's at. Man. It's a mess, but it is what it is. Like I said, I don't mind entertainers being entertainers and making their money. Go do what you do. It's fine. But don't sit here and do some BS and try to pass it off as revolutionary and then try to play in everybody else's faces. Like that's the beef that I have. Because again, for me, the journey shouldn't stop at Target, because I agree. Let's go after some of these other folks. But there has to be a way that it's done where Black folks collectively can still function. The difference between us and every other group of people right now is that we don't have any protections, right? We don't have any. We are literally existing right now. This is probably the first time since the 1960s that Black folks are literally just existing, and we don't really have the federal government protecting us, right? A mess. All right, let me read some comments, and then we're going to talk about Nolan Wells a little bit. But damn near 60 years old, still over here trying to appease some 20-year-olds. Whatever. Starting to look like Bill Cosby, too. All right. Somebody, Angel Heaven said there's no ethical billionaires, and that's including him and his wife. Somebody said, it's the horn for me. Somebody says, sat next to Trump but got the nerve to criticize Cap. And it don't stop with him either, because I saw 50 Cent just did whatever little MAGA event, and we've seen a lot of these rappers as well doing a lot of nonsense. And again, in the event that Jay is doing stuff behind closed doors and we just don't know it as far as his community work, lovely. But then at the same time, I don't get behind folks who then throw it back in their face like they did you a favor. There's nothing worse than extending help to somebody and then throwing it in their face every 5 minutes. And I still want somebody to give me the numbers of this $500 million back to the community. Please, somebody. If you can find it, I will happily come on the next live and we can read it and talk about whatever was done and we can celebrate it. But I just need to know what these numbers are and what it is rooted from, right? It's not me being a hater. I just genuinely want to know. Because if you put 500 million back into the community, that's amazing. Let's get to it, because we've seen other people. We've seen like a Queen Latifah go and build an entire housing project for a community and do different things. We've seen other celebrities who do whatever they do, and there are some celebrities who quietly do things, right? And maybe he's one of the quiet ones. Now, it is what it is. All right. Somebody say it louder. They volunteered to pull it. And that was my beef with Target. Nobody told Target to do what they did. They just signed up for it. So, okay, cool. And what I mean by that, like, let's look at a difference. Like let's look at some of these college universities who funding was threatened to be pulled if they didn't pull some of their African-American history programs and so on and so forth. See, that's the difference, where universities now have to weigh their leverage and be like, damn, well, if we lose this federal funding, will we be able to stay open? Will we be able to do this? Like, that's different than a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's having record profits, and they say, we're going to go ahead and pull those programs too. We know we promised you all these things, but we changed our minds. We don't need it anymore. Or you don't need it. Like, that's where it's at. Jay said in front of, what up, Inside Hickey Life 323. Y'all subscribe to her channel too. Jay sat in front of them clear people and said, we're past kneeling. I remember that. And it just came at a horrible time. We were right smack in the middle of everything. And now I already said the kneeling wasn't doing enough for me. And I was all like, okay, let's get to the policy. So technically when he said that, I'm waiting for the next part. Like, okay, so if we're past kneeling, now what? And what was the response? Inspire change, a whole new partnership. You buy some t-shirts and some Inspire change gear, and that's going to be the money that goes to community building. And on the plus side, you get some cool halftime shows. All right? NFL ain't changed at all. And mind you, that's at the same time where all those retired black NFL players that had all them conditions couldn't even get a large enough settlement, right, from the NFL. NFL been playing in our face this whole time. Never stopped. And when you get celebrity endorsements, they feel like celebrities are the voice of black folks. And now that the celebrities are good, the black folks should be happy. And everybody kept watching. Anyway. Somebody said, I hate these damn commercials during a live. You know what's bad too? Because now you'll literally be talking. I was watching somebody's video and the ad just like, it was like the screen like split in half where the person's on the thing and then there's an ad on the other side, but you can't hear the person. I was like, what? All right, YouTube. And mind you, I have it set up where my ads are they're just in the middle. Like you can make it aggressive or you can put it in the middle or make it really, really low. I just put it in the middle just with whatever's already there. So I'm like, man. And I only do that because I also don't do sponsorships. Y'all notice I don't be on here talking about, oh, today I'm wearing something from so-and-so. I don't ever do that. You just get me. You get an ad here and there. I don't do any sponsorships at the moment. Let's see. Like I said, Jay trying to discredit Cap was some nasty work. It really was, because it's kind of like Cap ain't said nothing about you. Why are you throwing him in the conversation? Because all it does is reignite, and then you're gonna have people who deride Jay and be like, yeah, because Cap actually, then it's gonna be whacking Cap and so on and so forth. Oh, this is perfectly said. People still thinking money equals morals. Exactly. People keep giving a pass to folks because they got money. There's so many times where I've seen people say, well, they get money though, and I'm like, that can't be the litmus test of how you measure everything. Money is lovely. We love money. It makes life great. But money is not the end all be all, and not all money is good money. Right? You might say, where's the excellence? And y'all know I am not a fan of the phrase black excellence because I feel like it creates a space where black people don't get the luxury to just exist. And the only time that we can be deemed valuable is if we are excellent. And we're the only demographic of people who are bound by that. I feel like we should be able to exist as is in whatever capacity that we want to. I love that we do amazing things that are excellent. I love it, but I'm not somebody who goes around, taunting black excellence, because then my question becomes the same kind of question that happens when there's somebody who's unjustifiably killed by the police. And then, you go like, oh man, he was or he or she was a straight A student and a this, that, and the third and a Rhodes Scholar and they da. And my question always becomes, well, if they weren't any of those things, would that make them less deserving of living? Right. So that's how I kind of see all that. Anyway, let's see. You know, it could have been dope. Speaking of, with all these celebrities that got all this money, I really feel because I still get pissed every time I think about Fearless Fund and the fact that they're no longer in existence. To me, one of the things that some of these super wealthy celebrities could have done, the ones that want to be more active, more of them could have put their money into the Fearless Fund, because that was something to me that I felt was building, right? Where Fearless Fund was, again, a venture capital program specifically for Black businesses, specifically for Black women-owned businesses, right? Let me get those numbers again. Do I have it on here? I don't know. I always got some numbers ready. Where's the numbers? Because I'm starting to forget the. All right. So going back, so with Fearless Fund, we know that there's venture capital. Venture capital is when you're starting your business or whatever, and you finally get some leverage and some legs. So now you go to a larger investor who's going to put some capital in your hands so that you can build your company and build it bigger. Kind of like what you see on Shark Tank. You know, somebody's selling some air fresheners, and they go in front of the sharks, and you know, if you just give me $400,000, I'll give you 15% of my company. Blah 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 blah. I can't even enjoy Shark Tank no more because half of the people that are Shark Tank people are Trumpers. So I'm like, I can't even enjoy the show no more. But anyway, when it came to Black women-owned businesses and venture capital, they only got 0.0006% of all venture capital funds. Of the billions of dollars that go into venture capital funds, Black women-owned businesses got 0.0006% of all venture capital funds. Fearless Fund was created as a way to combat that, where they would provide grants of $20,000 to Black women-owned businesses. And the work that they did helped to raise that number to 0.039% of venture capital funds towards Black women-owned businesses. So we went from 0.0006% to 0.39%. Still very low, but then we had a big hater named Edward Bloom who went and sued and said it was reverse discrimination and anti-Asian and against all the other communities, and why only Black women, why not everybody else? And they went back and forth with the litigation, and they fought as hard as they could, but the expenses became too much, and they just pulled out and shut down because they couldn't afford the litigation anymore. It would have been nice to see a lot of these same celebrities go in and stand behind an organization like that, where again, it was building companies that could expand and create new opportunities. That would have been nice. Like, that's how I feel like if celebrities want to put their money where their mouth is, put it into the things that build. Maybe not a casino in Manhattan. Anyway, that damn Edward Bloom. Boy, you talk about a hater. Okay. Let's see a few more comments, then we're gonna shift to Nolan. Damn, it's already midnight. Okay. Like I said, we never had protection. Fair enough. I'll say there were protections that were there. They may not have been enforced in the way that they should have been, but now we really have nothing, right? Now, even like Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is no longer something that can viably serve us because they've decided to pivot and make their focus white men with grievances, right? So it's like we're in a weird era right now. We are on our own. Okay, I'm going to finish with Nolan, and then we'll go to something a bit happier. All right, so I'm going to go to the article because this is the latest article that I've seen. I'm just waiting on the autopsy result, to be honest. That's the piece I'm waiting for so I can really say my full opinion. I don't want to get out here and start speculating. But anyway, let's go to the article. All right. I've also watched the interview that the parents had with Don Lemon and everything. It's just a sad case overall. All right, what happened to Nolan Wells? Family seeks answers 2 weeks after 18-year-old's death. Investigation continues after college freshman was found dead on Mississippi Island after 4 July boat trip with friends. All right. On July 4th, or on 4 July, Wells, an 18-year-old Mississippi college freshman, and a group of friends took a boat out to Horn Island, a barrier island a few miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. About 300 young adults gathered on a section of the island for a last hurrah before returning to college or work. One of Wells' friends said Wells' parents were supposed to take him to Southwest Mississippi Community College for football camp the following Monday. Wells' friends, his phone, and his keys were returned that day. He did not. Instead, after a missing person search that received national attention, his body was found on the island on July 6th. What exactly happened on Horn Island is still unclear, as is how the Ocean Springs native died. An investigation by local officials is ongoing. In the absence of answers, misinformation, and particularly on social media, is rampant. Here's what we know so far. Family speaks out. Late on 4th of July, a Facebook post by Christine Wansley, Wells' mother, in which she sought answers about her son or about her then missing son went viral. When she shared a photo of Wells, who was black, and 3 friends who are white, social media users began suggesting that whatever happened to Wells was racially motivated. At a press conference on 10th of July in New York, after Wells' body was found, Wansley addressed the racial nature of the situation. Me and his dad have conversations with him all the time, not just about the importance of understanding our history as black people, but also the importance of how you have to move in certain spaces, she said, standing by Reverend Al Sharpton and Ben Crump, who family has retained as an attorney. Crump said Sunday that at the New Birth Missionary Baptist Church outside Atlanta, we are in Mississippi. These are 3 young white men. Nolan was the only young black man. Had the roles been reversed, we know the investigation would be going differently. It would be like the first 48. They would be interrogating those young black boys. Ashley Cole, a mother of one of Wells' white friends and a Jackson County Chancery judge, denied that her family had hindered the investigation in a statement. She said that her son had been interviewed by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and alleged that left the island with a separate group of friends. Trayston Shepard, who was a friend of Wells and was on the island on 4th of July, told ABC News that Wells met a young woman and wanted to stay behind. Crump has said that the young woman said Wells decided to return with his friends. Horn Island is a designated wilderness area. It's undeveloped except for a small ranger station and has neither utilities nor commercial ferry service. Wells' family is skeptical about the claim that he would willingly choose to separate himself from the group. We always taught him that if you go with the group, you stay with the group, Elmore Wansley, his father, said during a Good Morning America appearance. If you go with 5, you come back with 5. Do not separate from the group, because I've always said safety is in numbers. So he knew to stay with the group. So why would he split from the group? I don't know. Crump suggested that the claim by the Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter that no foul play was suspected was made before the autopsy was completed was premature. We just want to know what happened. While Wells did not return from Horn Island, his phone did. The attorney said that an investigation of Wells' phone would be done mutually with local authorities, with our experts and their experts. Using Life 360, a live location sharing app, Wells' mother tracked his phone to the home of one of the people with whom Wells had ridden on the boat, Crump said. When she retrieved the phone, messages had been deleted. When we made it home, my sister and I actually went through Nolan's cell phone, particularly Snapchat, because that is so popular with the children. She said at Friday's press conference, when we opened it up, there was nothing. There were no saved pictures. There were no snaps from that day, and we did open it before the 24-hour expiration. We found that very concerning because anyone who's ever been around Nolan will tell you at social gatherings, he's taking videos, he's taking pictures. Wells' keys were found at the home of one of the men with whom he was pictured, Elmore's father said. We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home, Christine Wells' mother said through tears at the press conference in New York. The 18-year-old's body was flown to Washington, D.C. for an autopsy funded by Colin Kaepernick, Jigga Man, Crump said. A state autopsy has been completed, but its results have not been yet released. At this time, too many questions remain unanswered, and the Wells family, concerned members of the Mississippi community and our nation, deserve nothing short of a full, transparent, independent, and timely investigation into the circumstances that led to Mr. Wells' disappearance and untimely death, the Congressional Black Caucus said in a statement. Wells' funeral services were held on Monday at Center Point Church in Ocean Springs. The actor and filmmaker Tyler Perry is paying for the services. Look, even Tyler was about that life, okay? So a few questions that have gotten me. The first thing is, when they talk about this island, this was an island that was 10 miles off the shore. And what has not added up to me is, I don't understand why Nolan would choose to stay behind, but also give them his cell phone. That's the part where I started looking real sideways, like, what? Because, the friend's like, oh, yeah, he gave us the cell phone to go with. First of all, as someone who has worked with kids for a decade and some change, teenagers, because to me, 18 years still, it is a teenager. Teenagers do not let go of their phone for anything. And nobody in their right mind is going to be on a remote island voluntarily where there is no ferry service to get back and then leave their phone with their friends. Because what sense does that make to give your phone to your friends? What is that supposed to do? What does that prevent? Now, if there's some kind of emergency, I have no way to call or get any element of communication. And the other thing that I want to harp on is when I watched the Don Lemon interview, when the parents were talking about his car keys, initially, the friends were like, oh, no, we don't have the keys. We don't know where it's at. And the parents kept inquiring. And then finally, one of them goes back in the room and brings the keys out. Okay. All right. And we got some keys that we found. And then again, when the parents talk about the phone being deleted and wiped and swiped, like a lot going on, something ain't adding up. And of course, a lot of these friends have deleted all their social media and everything else like that. Something ain't right in the water. It still doesn't sit with me that they would be 10 miles off the coast on a random island and somebody is going to leave their phone. Even adults, we don't leave our phone for anything. Like every time I walk out the house, I know in my left pocket, front pocket is going to be my wallet, chapstick, and my keys. In the right pocket is going to be the phone. Everywhere, like those three things, pop, 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 pop. I'd never go anywhere without them, right? So I know somebody that's 18 years old is going to keep his phone. And even if this were true that he chose to stay on the island with some girl, he would definitely keep his phone because he's going to want to get the girl's number. They probably might want to take a selfie or two or whatever else they're going to do. That's the piece that I get. And again, I hate to have this conversation, but this is one of the reasons why I do get nervous a lot of times when you see Black folks and they're the only one in the group, because we've seen too many instances where something happens. Like we've talked about the story of the woman who had the sleepover with all the white women and then somehow she fell off the balcony. And that investigation is still up and down, closed. Oh, no foul play, up and down. Nope, nothing, something, right? We've seen that happen. We've seen what happens when we're in majority white spaces and something happens. Everything gets fishy. Look at Kendrick Johnson, who somehow was rolled up in the mat. They're like, oh, yeah, he lost his shoe and he went in the mat to try to get it. And he must have just suffocated. Like they will sit here and play in your faces. And the fact that all these kids and stuff lawyered up right away lets me know that this wasn't just some random happenstance. And I'm telling you, when that autopsy comes out, if there is some funny business, it's, I'm trying to not speculate and say what I think happened because I don't want to put out disinformation because clearly I don't know what happened yet. So I'm just waiting for details. But when that autopsy comes out, specifically the autopsy that Colin Kaepernick paid for, because I wouldn't trust the autopsy that is coming from the state because we've seen how some of these places move. And this is why, again, when we even say the conversation of community and discernment, this is kind of like what we're talking about, where you sometimes just have to, and I think it sucks. I think it sucks that as Black people, we don't get the luxury to just exist as is and run with anybody. We got to always overthink about everything because you just never know what's on the other side. You never know what anybody's intentions are. Damn, I want to say what my theory is, but I'm not trying to spew anything out there that's not true. So I'm going to wait and say what I really think a little bit later down the line. But let me read some comments here. I just think it sucks for the family. That's tough. You do everything to raise your kid to be, great. And it sounds like he was a kid that stayed out of trouble, had a bunch of great things going. And you get excited about your child getting ready to leave off and now you're burying them, right? That is not an easy feat. Like that is hard. And even watching the interviews, like the parents, my friend had to talk me off the ledge because I was getting annoyed because even watching the Don Lemon interview, I was getting annoyed because he kept complimenting with how poised they were. And I was like, I don't like when you do that. Why we, my friend kept trying to say, no, you got to remember that when this stuff starts shifting and turning, they're going to try to paint Nolan to be all kind of thugs and criminals, and his family was this, that, and the third. So they are playing the role and keeping it here because right now, while they still have the sympathy of America on their side, it's the good thing. I was like, okay, fine. Because every time Don was like, I'm just amazed at how poised you were. It just took me back to all the moments where when you have these, especially the Charleston 9, in these moments where they keep asking, can you forgive the killer? What? Why are you asking me that? Like my family just got slaughtered in church yesterday. Why are you asking me, do I forgive the killer? Right? Stuff like that. Anyway, let me read some comments here. Maybe one of you might say what I'm thinking out loud. And I can just read it and pass it to you and it won't be on me. I said, I hate that his parents aren't calling this out as a racially motivated attack because I'm 100% sure it is. They hurt that boy because they were there arguing about some white girl that they all like. My heart hurts for her because she seems like a genuinely kind person. The judge is obstructing justice. She should not be making statements. She knows better. This whole thing smells. Yeah, something is fishy in the water with this one. And I'm like, damn, man, I wish I had more facts on this. A mess. All those people and no footage of what happened. We know something ain't right. Yeah, because teenagers and people at that age record everything. No pictures, no video, no nothing. And I can't imagine. And even as a friend, if I know we're on an island 10 miles away from everything and we're all going back, I'm not letting any friends stay behind. Because how are you getting back? There's no ferry service. What do you mean you're staying behind? Staying behind and doing what? And why are you giving me your cell phone? No, keep your cell phone. Because you need to call us and let us know what's happening. Because, well, one, we ain't going nowhere. All of us getting on this boat. Like, that's to me how friends would move. These people don't seem like they were his friends. Somebody said, I'm 51 years old. I might lose my keys, but I don't lose my phone. We don't play about the phones, right? All of us, our whole lives are in them phones, right? Exactly. Somebody said teenagers, or Harold, what up, Harold? Harold said teenagers do not let them cell phones loose. They can tell that lie to somebody who doesn't know better. Like, man. Somebody said, as a solo traveler, your cell phone is your only savior. Like, literally. By the way, note to everybody, make sure that you always know at least 5 phone numbers by heart in the event that there is an emergency and you don't have your cell phone. Because we've shifted from the era of when we used to know everybody's number by heart, or maybe you had that book and you called people so much that you just knew their number by heart. Now that we're in the cell phone era, it's already just in there. So you should always know at least 5 people's number by heart, where if you end up in any kind of emergency and you don't have your cell phone, you can bop, 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 or give this number to somebody and get the help that you need, just as a note, right? We sometimes become so dependent upon the new technology that we have that sometimes it actually works against us when it's not available, right? Exactly. When Love said, on a remote island, it just doesn't add up. It does not at all. Somebody said those waters were choppy. Ain't no way anybody's even with a stranger. And again, 10 miles is not close on the water. 10 miles is not even close on land. So you leave somebody on an island and the sun is setting? Like, what? Somebody make it make sense, right? And even if he stayed on the island voluntarily, how does his body just pop up? Like, how does it? We don't know if he's drowned or what yet, but something ain't adding up at all. At all. So anyway, we'll see what happens as more details come along. Anyway, those are all of my topics. I hate that we ended on something so dark, so I'm going to try to lift our energy back up, right? Somebody was asking me, because I'm going to just talk about music for a few minutes before I call it a night. Somebody was asking me, what are some songs that no matter how many times they come on, you're going to listen to them every time all the way through, right? So I'm asking you guys that same question. I had my handful, but I just kind of want to see where everybody's at. And what I mean by that is like a song where it doesn't matter how old it is, how many times you listen to it, you're going to play it every time, and it's going to hit every single time that it comes on. So you guys start sharing your answers while I read a little bit more of the chat. I'm also at the bottom of the chat, so if you're trying to get me in real time, this is the moment, right? Somebody was saying, if when I go back to teaching, I will have those life skills for my students. All right, Madison Trivia. Every now and then, I'm not gonna lie, I do miss working with the kids. I really do miss having that center. Because that really was a good time. It was a lot of work. It could be tiring. Them kids used to wear me out, but I really, really loved that job. And every now and then I'll scroll through my phone and like look at old clips and old videos and just be laughing at like stuff that happened. And I love that those kids have all grown up. Well, there's some that are still kids, but they're all adults now, right? I have one who, she was so excited because she just hit me. She's like, I finally got like my first apartment in New York that she got. And they're living it up. I got one who's excited because they're doing a Harvard law program. I'm like, y'all are killing the game. I love that for y'all. But I really enjoy working with kids. Maybe I will find my way back to it in a different capacity. We'll see. I don't know. But not right now. Got a bunch of other things happening. Let's see. Okay, some of the songs y'all said. Somebody said, okay, All I Do by Stevie Wonder. That's a good one. I'd even throw Sir Duke in there. Sir Duke is one that I always will play from Stevie, no matter what. Somebody said, there is no housing on the island or electricity. Why would he stay? Exactly. And I know it's pitch black when the sun goes down. King is in 84 said, Sade, is it a crime? I love Sade. Okay, now my Sade song that I will always play every time is Nothing Can Come Between Us. That's my one right there. K Inspired said Luther Vandross, Never Too Much. I like that one, but my Luther song is always Here and Now. Here and Now I'll play every time. And it used to be and Wait for Love, right? Because I like the way the background singers approach that song. Chidelo 2891 said High Five, I Like the Way. The Kissing Game, that's a good one. I like that one. Let's see here. Oh, y'all got some good ones in here. Keith Sweat, Twisted. Okay, can I tell y'all, speaking of Keith Sweat, Twisted, right? Remember in the music video? Can I tell you what I thought? Actually, I'm going to pull this up, but I'm just going to have it on silent so I don't get flagged by YouTube. Let me tell you exactly what I thought was happening in this video. Twisted. You got me twisted. Okay, let's cut the sound. I don't want to hear no sound. Okay, so when I was little, when I used to watch this video, remember how Okay, so the album version, you know, there's the rapper, but on the music video, there's the bridge. So remember the video, right? There's the girl. She robs all the people. She's a really pretty girl. I'm just fast forwarding a little bit, right? Actually, let's just speed up the playback speed. Let's go 3. Oh, damn, I gotta put sheet. Oh, no, I ain't paying for no premium. Okay, we'll just go to, let's just go to 2. Okay, so anyway, in the video, right, there's a robbery. He's the officer and everything like that. And mind you, they found a pretty girl to do the crime, right? And there's all this crime. You got cut close in the white. So when I was little, I thought this scene with them in the white, I'm thinking that they are in heaven. Like, I'm thinking that they are angels. Like, Cut Close is the angels. Because you know how Cut Close with Athena Case, they have these very kind of unique vocals that sound just very interesting. They sound really good, but they're kind of angelic. So I used to think that this was supposed to be heaven, right? And so the video keeps playing, right? Keith is the officer. He's discovering, oh my God, this is the jewelry. Wait, I think this is the necklace my girl was wearing in the video. So they're doing all the singing. Bop, 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 bop. Love this one here. Okay, that's the girl that he had the crush on. They arrest her because she's the person that did the robbery in the beginning of the video, right? She gets cuffed. He's supposed to take her in. Yeah, that's her in the back seat. Of course. Wait, let me backtrack a little bit. He was supposed to take her in. Of course, she's being all Miss Sexy Hot thing, and somehow she escapes. He's mad. They already slept together at this point and everything. In love with this lady. Boom, she's at his place. She got the handcuffs that he cuffed her in. Here we go. I got the cuffs right here. What do you want to do? Right? So they go and they do their little thing, boom, boom, boom. And then it fast forwards to the scene where she's right here. This is the police barricade, right? I don't know why I remember this video so vividly, but there's like the police barricade. She's trying to escape out the fire chute or whatever. And then this is why I thought it was heaven, right? Because they end up sadly killing a girl because, again, it's the 90s. Everybody got to die. And he tried to stop it, but no. So in the video version, remember when the background singers are doing like the I thought they were saying joy. I thought they were going like joy. And then I thought they said like joy, my Lord. Like I thought it was like a gospel something. And I thought that somehow when she died and got shot, she went to heaven with Keith Sweat. Now, to be fair, I was like 8 years old when all this was happening. But the way I had this video mapped out in my head, a mess. Anyway, let me see what other topics y'all had. Sorry, I just had to be silly. But yeah, I thought Cut Close and Keith Sweat in the white were like supposed to be angels in heaven. And when she died on the thing after robbing and getting shot, then she went to heaven. Joy, my Lord. And that they were not even saying that in the lyrics. Okay. Where are we at here? Gotta find my spot. Okay. Moments in Love, Art of Noise. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Summer Breeze. I do like their version more. Summer Breeze makes me feel fine. Okay. Sweet Thing. You can always go with Shaka. Now Rufus. Now my Shaka song is always gonna be I Feel For You. I don't care how many times that comes on. That is one I will play all the way through. I was cranking that today, right after I had my little lunch, just cranking in the car. And every time I go and see her, that's always my favorite part of the show is when she does I Feel For You, especially because then she does this little thing where she does like a rollback and then she kicks that leg and does it about 5 times. Love it. Love it. Coffee Brown, After Party. All right. Stevie Wonder, As. That's a good one. I like the, even though it's sad, I even like the Anthony Hamilton and Marsha Ambrosius version of As. I really enjoyed that one. Amazing Frankie Beverly, Before I Let Go. I also like While I'm Alone. That's the one I really like from them. Somebody said Ain't Nobody Shaka Khan. Alicia Keys, No One. Somebody said Memories by Maroon 5. Somebody said any song from Sade or Maxwell's first album. Somebody said I'm trying to get out of teaching into instructional design. I can't take schoolhouse, i.e. admin anymore. I think this is a really hard time to be in education because there's so many funding cuts and educators are always being vilified by leadership and everything. And we're just in an era where the pendulum has shifted with how people even learn. And I think our curriculum has not matched up with the changes in technology. It's just a weird time. So I always have a high respect for anybody that works in education right now, especially trying to teach the next generation when you're literally even being told what you're not allowed to teach anymore. They're literally changing the history books to push this little white nationalist narrative, and some teachers have to abide by it or lose their job. Like, that's a wild time to be in. Somebody said Soul for Real, Candy Rain. That one, I'm sorry, because you hear it at so many parties. I'd be like, skip. Can We Talk by Tevin Campbell? Skip. If you go at a party and a bunch of white folks, Montel Jordan, This Is How We Do It? Skip. Velvet DeVoe Poison? Skip. I love those songs, but because you hear them so much, I'm like, Now, Soul for Real, the song that I really like from them was Every Little Thing I Do. Yeah, that one is the one for me. Earth, Wind, and Fire, Reasons is a good one. Stevie Wonder said Stevie Wonder, That Girl. Okay, Surface, Happy. Can make me happy. Rome, Belong to You. Somebody said, I thought you put out a podcast, Comedically Hard episode. I haven't seen an update. So the episode is on all the streaming platforms. So if you go on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, the latest Comedically Hard-Headed episode is there. Now, I will be uploading a new episode to this channel, but it's not the newest episode. It's about 4 episodes behind where we are. So if you want to be like current with the latest episode, you got to go to the streaming sites. What comes on the YouTube normally comes after they've had their run on the streaming sites, just so I can get my little quarter and a half, right? But yeah, there will be one on this YouTube channel this week as well, but it's not going to be the latest one. I think this is, I don't remember which episode it is, but it's like 4 episodes behind the one that just came out on Tuesday. Stomp Brothers Johnson, that's a favorite. I love that bass riff during the breakdown. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? Okay, I literally was just listening to his Hear My Dear album as I was doing my notes for this live. D'Angelo's version of Cruising, that's a good one. One Nation Under a Groove. All right, Parliament. Anything to say about Sellout Tatum's statement? I don't know who that is. I probably do know who that is. I just don't know the right context of what this is about. You might have to give me a little bit more context. Somebody said, I taught for 41 years total. Wow. And so much joy out of watching them be great. That's the cool part. I love, unless I'm at a bar or something, but outside of that, I love running into my old kids, right? One time I was at Decades and hey, Mr. Michael. Oh, shit. Oh, it's one of my kids, y'all. We got to go, right? Commodore Zoom is a good one. Carl Thomas, Summer Rain. Somebody said, there's nothing better than love. Whitney Houston, Where You Are. Heat Wave, Always and Forever. That's one of my karaoke songs. Anything Stevie Wonder and Sade. Jill Scott, Golden. You know what my Jill Scott song is right now? The Lifting Me Up off that new album. I love that. I need somebody to go ahead and do a mix-up of It's Love and Lifting Me Up together since they both got the go-go vibe. I enjoy that one. That's why I'm pissed that I did not go to her show because I wanted to hear that live. And you know what's crazy? Outside of going to AFRAM in Baltimore, which is just a free festival, I have not been to a single concert this year. And normally I'm at a concert every month. I haven't been to a concert at all year. The last concert I've been to was Brandy and Monica, and that I think was last fall, which is crazy. Is the book club still on? Yes, it is. See you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The Zoom link is on the community tab, or you can use the Zoom link on my website. Somebody said the video is very ridiculous as far as Keith Sweat. A lot of them videos made no sense, but you know, they had budgets though. They had a budget. Good times. Somebody said, no, my Jill Scott song is He Loves Me. Okay. The Whispers and the Beat Goes On. You know what my whisper song is? Keep On Loving Me. I think it's the bass line. I think it's that bass line that makes you be like, hey, all right. Said, don't laugh. It's the white singer Joe Crocker, Feeling All Right. Well, my Joe Crocker song was with a little help from my friends, right? That's the one I like. Michael Jackson, Butterflies. Somebody said music videos were such productions before. They really were. Somebody said not them in heaven. I mean, they all had the white on. I thought they were going to heaven, right? They was just waiting for her to get there. And mind you, she didn't kill somebody. Rick James, Mary Jane, Lucy Pearl, Dance Tonight. One of my favorites. Actually, the opening song of my After Yesterday album, the So Good, is definitely inspired by Lucy Pearl's Dance Tonight and Brothers Johnson, I'll Be Good to You. Ohio Players, Sweet Sticky Thing. Pointer Sisters, Automatic. Raphael Sadiq, Ask of You. That one just grew on me in the last few years. Casey and JoJo, All My Life. All right. That was one I loved as a child, but that's one that I'd be skipping too because they played it so much, I can't enjoy it the same way. But I will enjoy Tell Me It's Real from Casey and JoJo. Tina Marie, Distant Lovers. Kim, Share My Life. AWB, if I ever lose this heaven/schoolboy crush. Somebody's going, okay, you're going to see Eric Benet on August 28th. I don't even know what I'll be doing on August 28th. I don't know. I don't got my August figured out. Somebody said they watched Bruno at NERG. That was my concert for the year. I'm sure that was a good show. I know he's on tour, that big stadium tour he's doing. Whispers, Olivia. So I said music videos had greater production value than most movies these days. Listen, now I know TLC's getting whacked because all that chili nonsense, but I keep saying TLC in those last two era, or the Fan Mail and the Crazy Sexy Cool era, those got to be some of the best music videos ever. Like Creep alone is a movie. Just the quality of Creep. Creep as a music video still gives music videos of today a run for their money. Red Light Special was an excellent video. Waterfalls is, I mean, you had F. Gary Gray directed. You know, he's the same guy that did Set It Off and Friday. What else? Digging on You. That's actually my favorite video from that era. Like, Digging on You is a freaking movie. Digging on You to me is it's like when you watch the end of a movie and it's the happy ending. Like, that's what that whole music video is. Like, they're just so beautiful, and they had the remix of the song. I love that video. That was the first time we all saw Left Eye without her hair tied back, right? Just beautiful video. Then of course you get to the Family era. The No Scrubs video is a whole thing, like really, really cool. It's one of the first music videos I saw when I moved back to America. And then Unpretty video, again, excellent video, excellent story, great message behind it. Tear Live was all right, but by then they was fighting. But yeah, they had some great videos back then. All right, let's see. All right, It's a Shame. Detroit Spinners, that's a good one. I like the Moni Love interpretation of that song as well. Levert, Casanova. In Vogue, Hold On. LTD, Where Do We Go Wrong? Saturday Love. Never on Monday. Somebody said, I think I missed it. What's the theme of this playlist? Oh, I'm just talking about songs that you, no matter how many times they come on, you're going to always play them all the way through every time. You can never get tired of them. That's because somebody was asking me that. So I was like, oh, let me see what y'all think. Bootsy Collins, Rather Be With You. Yes, that's a good one. Callaway, I Want to Be Rich. What do you know about that song? That's one of the first songs I remembered. I was only like 2 when that song came out, but I remember that song vividly. I want money, lots and lots of money. I used to love that song when I was little. I wanna be rich. That's a good one. That just took me way back. Let's see. Stevie Wonder, Overjoyed. That's a good one. Fire and Desire. Rick James and Tina Marie. That's a good one. Okay, Janet, Love Will Never Do Without You. You know, that's a good one. That's always a classic. Now, I will say, the way that she performs it on the Velvet Rope Tour is my favorite version of that song, because they sped it up. Like, that Velvet Rope Tour band sped that song up so fast. And then if you watch not the DVD version, but the one that originally aired, then the band did an encore when the song ended, and the band just went in for like 2 minutes with the that was so good. And I liked it too because Janet's mic was on. You can't tell because it's the DVD, it'd be overdubbed, but when you go back and play the real HBO Live special, it's like, oh, she was actually singing. Oh, that's right. Let's see. Yeah, shout out to the Hype Williams music videos. Exactly. Sade, Cherish Today. Anything SOS Band. Yeah, they got some good ones. Tell Me If You Still Care. There's a song that didn't make my last album that actually was kind of an interpolation of that, but I was like, I had too many songs, so something had to get cut. And then I was going to make it an interlude, and I was like, no, the album's still too long. Something got to get cut, so I let it go. One of these days, maybe we'll just do a whole unreleased release of all these songs that didn't make some of these projects. Aaliyah, One in a Million. All right, that's always going to be a good one. Alicia Keys' Diary. Janice, that's the way love goes. I kind of kill that one in karaoke too a little bit. Switch, They'll Never Be. I love that one. I even like the way that Erykah Badu approaches it on That Hump. Donald Jones, Where I Want to Be, Knocks Me Off My Feet. SOS Band, Broad Love. Okay, now you got me with one I don't know yet. Let me write that one down. I don't think I remember that one. That's a first. Okay. SOS Band, Broad Love. I'm going to come back to that one and tell you what I think about it later on. All right. No Letting Go. I think it's Wayne Wonder. Okay. Computer Love. That's a good one. Method Man, All I Need with Mary J. Shanice, I Like Your Smile is always a good one. She used to sing down on that one. All right. Dock of the Bay, Otis Redding. Chunky by Bruno. Herb Albert Rise. You Should Be Mine, Jeffrey Osborne. Let's see. Oh, I love Maxwell's second album, Embryo, because it has one of my favorite songs. This is Kings in '84. You have to listen to Maxwell's second album, Embryo. Or Embryo. I'm saying it wrong. Sorry. Matrimony, Maybe You, and Submerged Till We Become the Sun, especially Submerged. That's one of my favorite songs. Come on, Poison Ivy. You speaking my language. Brand New Heavies, Never Stop is one of my favorite songs. I will never get tired of that song. And Dia Davenport tore that song up. I think that is one of the best songs ever. I put it right there with Sounds of Blackness, Optimistic. Like, it will never get old. It's live instrumentation, so it's that acid jazz sound, and it just always sounds fresh, no matter how many different times you play it. That's probably one of my favorite songs, period. Somebody said Janet, Because of Love. Somebody said, did you see Shakira and Burna Boy at FIFA? It was cute. I forgot that I really wasn't following the World Cup. I know I told y'all I always try to root for the black folks and stuff, but I didn't really follow it, so I didn't even know that the final was today. I was over here doing the notes for the live, so I missed it all. So I got to go back and check. But I heard it was Shakira and Madonna and who else? Justin Bieber, I think. So I have to go back and watch. I'm Gonna Be by Donald Jones. What's that? I'm Gonna Be. I forgot about this song. Yeah. Okay, I remember that. Somebody said they found a Velvet Rope tour at the thrift store for $2. You better hold on to it. Like the way that all these DVDs are disappearing and everything is streaming. Any kind of physical media is a gem right now. Natalie Cole, The Coast. 1-2 Step. Sierra and Missy. Okay. The Jets, Crush on You. That's a fun one. Ready for the World, Oh Sheila. Digital Display. Love You Down. Digital Display. Slave, Watching You. That's a fun one. Let's see. Curious Midnight Star. Dang, I got so many of those. All right. Let me see here. I lost my spot. Ribbon in the Sky, Intros version. Prince, Controversy. Now, I got a lot of Prince songs I can play all day. 17 Days is one of my favorites, but I do like Controversy because it got that little funk bit with it, especially the extended version. Somebody said maybe I'll title it Calvin's Audience Playlist. Family Affair by Sly and Family Stone is a good one. It's a family affair. I like that. Prince, Erotic City. Nasty song, but I love it. Shantae Moore. Shantae's Got a Man. I like that song. It's trifling. I even like the remix. Remember they had the remix and it had the Shantae's got a man at home. What your man got to do with me? I got a man. Like they kind of mixed it up with the whatchamacallit song. I used to like that one too. Jay Don't Walk Away is one of my favorites. You know I love me a good cowbell. Michael Jackson, Earth Song. I think that's actually one of his best music videos too. Earth Song. I think that's one of his top videos. Window Seat, Erykah Badu. Music Soul Child. Love. All right. Hey Mr. DJ by John A. That's a favorite one too. That one never gets old. And I like Sending My Love. That was a good one. All right, we're about to wrap up because I need to go to bed. Pop Life, Alexander O'Neill. Sunshine, Stylistics, Mine All Mine. Stranger in Moscow. Summer Rain by Carl Thomas. Closer I Get to You. I don't know if that's the Beyonce and Luther or if that's the Roberta and Donnie, but I will take both of them. Oh, Spain won. Good, because I wanted Argentina to lose. They too racist over there for me. Spain ain't that much better, but I'll take Spain over Argentina. Let's see. A lot of y'all got Donald Jones knocking me off my feet. I might have to go back and play. I never played that song like that, ever. I'll play You Know What's Up. I'll play Where I Want to Be. I'll play I'll Go, but I never play his Knocks Me Off My Feet like that. I have to go back and revisit. Whitney Houston, After We Make Love. Madonna, Take a Bow. I be whacking Madonna, but I go up for that song. That whole album. I'd be having a good time. Actually, I listened to her new album. It's actually not too bad. It's real oons. It's not bad. I was like, okay, Madonna. I like to see the people that are like in their 50s and 60s still doing it and doing it well. Shantae Moore, Now That Love's Taking Over. If y'all don't know, she is one of my favorites. So anything Shantae Moore is going to be a win for me. Aaliyah, Are You That Somebody? Dance With My Father. I like Dancing with My Father, but then every time the bridge comes on, I get all sad because it's that line about him hearing the mom in the room crying. I'm like, damn. Oh, that one to get you. Loose End, Slow Down. My Loose End song is Watching You. That's one I really like. Tempted to Touch. Lisa Fisher, How Can I Ease the Pain? Mariah Carey, Melt Away. Bliss by Solange. All right, D'Angelo, Found My Smile Again. I love that one too. I didn't think I would like that song when I was little because, you know, it was on the Space Jam soundtrack. And I remember the song took like 50 minutes to start. But once it kicked off, I was like, oh, okay. Phyllis Hyman, Living All Alone. You know, we love Phyllis around here. Right? Phyllis still needs a series. It used to be a biopic I wanted, but give us a series at this point. All right. I'm loving all these, but I'm going to wind it down because I need to go to bed. I'm tired. But I see some other ones mentioned by Beyonce, Shanice, Tony, Mariah, Ozzy Brothers, Prince. Breakdown by Mariah is, now that's one of my favorite Mariah songs. And I love that Breakdown and Baby Doll come back to back on that Butterfly album. Anyway, this has been real. This has been dope. This has been good. Thank y'all for your patience. Like I said, I'll upload a podcast episode to this channel, but it's not the new one. So make sure if you want the latest episode, go to the streaming platforms. And then again, we have another episode that drops in like 2 weeks right after that because I recorded 2 episodes at the same time. When we get this Nolan Wells autopsy, we're going to talk. And don't forget, for those who are on the book club, I will see you all tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern time. All right? Chapters 1 through 10, Sky Full of Elephants, Sibo Campbell. Anyway, stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so that you can age well. And I will see you all on the next live. All right, folks. Good night.